provide the right-of-way dedication. Now it's official. So that's all this is in reference to. Yes, sir.
Any discussion amongst the board at 6:07? Everybody understood what's, okay. Well, with that, there's no deliberation on this, and I'd like to take a vote for go ahead and consider that final plat. All in favor? Or wait a minute. Sorry, it's been a long day, folks. Can I get a motion for that?
I motion we approve.
Second, please.
I second.
All right, all in favor of approving the final plat for property at 600 Canado Parkway? You've got a 4-0 quorum, ma'am. Unanimous. All right, that's the easy stuff. Let's get down to the fun stuff. All right, public hearings. PC case 2501 to conduct a public hearing and consider a proposed zoning change from OT4, which is Old Town Sub-District 4, to PD Planned Development for 409 West Canado Parkway, Block 2, Lot 4A, 413 West Canado Parkway, Block 2, Lot 4B as in Bravo, and 429 West Canado Parkway, Block 2, Lot 5R, 1R of the Woodley Acres Edition in the city of Kennedale, Tarrant County, Texas, 76060. At this time, do I have anybody, I would like to open the floor, 608, to discuss this particular agenda item. Anybody looking to speak at this time for that item only?
Mr. Chairman, we have 11 people who signed up to speak.
Okay, is that for the Old Town District or is that for the general commercial district? 03.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Okay.
This is for the other one.
All right, so we don't have anything for 01. Okay, any alibis for that? Anybody would like to come up and speak to it? Now keep this in mind, this is case 2501 for the Old Town. Did you fill out a form, sir?
I'm sorry, I'm the applicant. I'm ready to make my
Oh,
presentation whenever you want.
my bad, okay. Well, at that point, we'll go ahead and close that at 6:09 for public discussion, and we'll go ahead and welcome the applicant. Go ahead, sir.
I do have some slides I'm about to open up. There we go. All right, thank you, commissioners, everybody in attendance. My name is Sky Tippett. I'm with Mission Ridge Consultants here, representing the prospective buyer of the property, Greenmark Waste Solutions, for this case, for their headquarters, PZ 25-01. I'm going to start off by reading this straight to you. It outlines the purpose of our plan development or proposed plan development exactly. So we're looking to establish specific land use regulations for Greenmark Waste Solutions headquarters, allow it to reuse the former Kennedale campers site as a corporate headquarters and fleet storage, and enhancing the site aesthetics with upgraded fencing, landscaping, and facade improvements, which we'll discuss in this presentation, ensuring that no waste processing or dumping occurs on site. We're minimizing the environmental and community impact, of course, of the site as well, and supporting economic vitality within the city of Kennedale. So we're proposing the following uses to be permitted within this PD, those being general offices and services, construction building services, which includes indoor and outdoor storage sub-uses. I put in here an insert of our site plan. It kind of gives you a hybrid aerial of the site along with our boundary. Initially, we're going to be, it's kind of intuitive when you look at it, utilizing the existing offices, the campers floor sales floor area basically for the headquarters offices and the outdoor area for storage and of the fleet vehicles for the headquarters. So about the company, got to know them very well throughout this process, and really I respect what they're looking to do. So most people, when they go into this business, they buy an existing company with older equipment and things like that, and they just utilize basically what they're given. So these folks are actually, they've been in the industry for a while now. And in order to commit to a culture of safety and service, they're actually buying brand new equipment, starting a brand new company using state-of-the-art equipment. And so they are starting basically from the ground up and utilizing this area as their initial headquarters for Green Mark Waste Solutions. They're going to start off here with 12 employees with the intent to hire several additional positions in the future. And again, they're desiring to make Kennedale the focal point of their company's headquarters. So they both have a short-term and long-term vision for the site. So the first go, once we get permitted to actually construct and refinish the building, they want to establish the site as their corporate headquarters, of course, update with the interior finishes for office and staff and the drivers with the company, to continue recruiting and training new staff, and then utilizing the site for container storage while making the site improvements. I want to talk about these container storage locations as well. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit further into the presentation, but those containers are to be located in between the open storage area and the residences that you see to the north, in order to create kind of buffer for noise, those kind of things. Those containers will just naturally kind of help out any kind of noise that happens on site while it's being repurposed. And I just want to highlight this is a family-owned and operated company as well, so this is what will be coming to the town. So there's a long-term vision as well, as to continue to grow the headquarters on site. You saw the undeveloped area to the south, 409 and 413, Kennedale Parkway. There is intent to expand the office operations and storage in the back as they grow their business. And then add 2 additional satellite offices, one in the North Fort Worth area and one in the North Dallas area, to kind of triangulate the Metroplex. So there's a strategy to this location. If you were wondering in your mind, why are they looking here? I'm sure everybody's aware here in Kennedale, the landfills that we have just out of town, the Southeast landfill and the Fort Worth landfill. The Southeast landfill being just within a quarter to a half mile to the site, of course, being accessed by Dick Price Road primarily. So the site just fits in from a strategic location perspective. So the PD calls for certain locations and siting standards. That calls for outdoor storage areas. They must be screened from Kennedale Parkway. I have an image that's about to come up that will show you what that screening looks like. The screening will actually replace the existing chain link fence that you see. It's going to be a masonry fence. Again, I'll show you here in a second what that looks like. Buffer zones to be established with enhanced landscaping along the residential boundaries. So we're looking to plant evergreens in between the northern boundary abutting the residences. So not only will there be containers there will be a grouping of evergreens to block and mitigate any kind of sounds and other perceived negative externalities that might happen in that area, along with the buffer zone of 50 feet for most activities occurring within those residential homes. And I'll get into that more specifically here in a second. Landscaping along Kennedale Parkway, reflective of the conceptual renderings I'm about to show you. And then this last bullet talks about the existing office structure being allowed in its place. I'm sure you guys know the OT4 is a form-based code type area. So we would just honor the building being allowed in its current site. Any kind of new future construction, of course, on 409, 413, we would honor that form-based code and build that building closer to the parkway to meet the OT4 standards. And here's the vision for site improvement. So I want to start off with the landscaping that you see. Of course, this is a conceptual rendering right now. Moving forward in this process, we would obviously hire a professional arborist to make sure the native plants that we're looking to utilize along the corridor are good and sustainable and can live very well there and look beautiful, along with adding additional trees, large canopy trees to the frontage as well. The existing chain link fence would be replaced with the masonry fence that is designed to be opaque with its gate. and then to match the actual structure. If you look at the structure and you've studied the OT4 code within the zoning ordinance and then some images that are in the comprehensive plan, we're looking to reflect the desired design that the city has for Kennedale Parkway in this area. So the PD also calls for design and construction standards where the facade, as we've shown, must complement the Old Town District character. The outdoor storage must be screened with at least 8 feet of solid fencing. And the lighting, that was something that we talked with staff about that's very important. The existing lighting that's out there, it's pretty tall, and it was approved at a time where we didn't have certain standards. So we're going to make sure that lighting is shielded and faced downward, so it's not spilling over into our abutting neighbors or anything like that, causing some kind of disturbance. Of course, we have certain standards we must meet at 0.2 foot candles at the property boundaries, but we'll make sure to not only meet that standard, but exceed that with our development. So the PD also has some parking standards that we'd like to have added. Of course, this is a maximum number of 31 parking spaces in existence, and allowing for the parking that you see along the frontage as well to remain where it is. Of course, future expansion would call for additional parking, so that would just come due to the nature of future expansion to 409, 413, which would actually be located kind of behind the building as well. So the PD has certain operational standards. Again, this goes back to respecting our residential neighbors to the north. So we're establishing a 50-foot buffer from them, basically, only allowing idling to be done for a certain amount of time if that happens to be conducted in that area, for about 20 minutes maximum for idling vehicles, and then to be positioned in a property to minimize backup alarms. All maintenance is limited to routine tasks within an enclosed facility, basic oil changes, tire replacement, minor dent repair, those kind of things, just things that happen to fleet vehicles as they conduct their activities. And of course, compliance and enforcement. This is something we have to adhere to, just like any other property owner or any development in the city. We just want to make sure our PD is written to enforce those compliance issues, to make sure we're following all local, state, and federal regulations and in compliance with the city of Kennedale as well. So the potential future development, so there is that long-term vision for the property, and 409, 413, you can see what we're showing in this image here, kind of that red box in 413. That's a placeholder just to show where a building can go. That meets more of the form-based code that Kennedale wants to see. That building could shrink or something resize itself, of course, but really that building would be positioned to basically naturally screen any additional storage in the back. We have a very deep lot here, and the lot also drops down quite a bit. So that building and our strategy for the future is to utilize additional office buildings, of course, to be designed in the same manner to screen that naturally in the back. All right, land use compatibility. So I really appreciate the conversation we had in December with staff. We had a very grounded conversation with the property. So we understand what's there. You drive by it today, you can see through the chain link fence and this kind of the swath of pavement that's there. We did a lot of due diligence prior to engaging with staff and just kind of thought about what could come here and kind of really how Greenmark can, really fit in well to the property. So, we talked about uses like car dealerships, other vehicle dealers. Unfortunately, those sales taxes, those don't go to the city, those kind of things. So we really talked about trying to make ourselves compatible with what's already there. Of course, the campers sales is a retail type activity, but we want to move that more to a general office headquarters type environment, of course, with fleet service storage as well. So we felt like, we are really compatible to this property. And if you really look at it from a realistic perspective, what kind of uses would you expect to come here? It's a very deep lot. It has a lot of existing concrete already. So we just felt like this was a very appropriate location, especially given its proximity to the landfills to the west. And the comprehensive plan, just like staff has in their staff report, we do feel as though we're basically consistent with all areas. So I'll read this to you. So we're meeting the desired OT design. Even though we're not in the OT4 future area, we're in the general commercial future land use plan. We just want to respect the existing OT4 zoning district that we are currently in and design accordingly to what you see in the desired images in the Kennedale Code and Comprehensive Plan. When I opened up the comprehensive plan during due diligence myself, this is the first thing that stuck out to me. This is in the economic development goals section of the comp plan, which aligns with objective 1, which is strengthen workforce to support retail and restaurant businesses. We want to bring more folks in that are going to be here throughout the day to support the local businesses, the restaurants, things like that, to engage with those businesses as well. And helps replace the vacancies. We don't know how long that site might be vacant in its current location. So we have a user right now ready to go and to refill those, and with a future kind of intent to expand on the site as well. So in wrapping up this discussion, the request that the zoning change is compatible with the existing land use. I think we established that. The proposed rezoning aligns with the comprehensive plan. The future land use plan supports us with the general commercial use, and we are definitely in line with staff's recommendation and the elements they outline in their staff report and would develop their recommendation for approval, and we hope you feel the same. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have one, well, a couple, but we'll just ball it up in one. I noticed on the website, there's a lot more than just the fleet vehicles when it comes to waste management, but there's water trucks, as we used to call the military honey trucks. There are porta potties, et cetera, like that. Is this stuff that's going to be also utilized in that area? And if so, what is the sanitation side of that going to look like as far as a relationship to the properties that are beside it, especially the residential? Because now we've got chemicals and some fun smells
Sure.
we're all well aware of. So I just want to make sure we can speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. The site's already ready to, it services campers. So any kind of the waste kind of dumping that's already set and programmed to kind of plug into, so to speak. So it's set up to do that. Of course, we have to follow all TCEQ regulations and obviously the local code here. So, and then respecting that 50-foot buffer to make sure that those activities aren't happening in a way that they're going to affect the residences to the north in any kind of direct manner. Speaking about the exact intended operations, we do have the prospective owners here who can answer some more detailed questions if I didn't answer that good enough for you.
I'm just interested in the scope, what's happening. Like I said, I'm trying to protect those around them also.
Absolutely, yeah.
With understanding as well as just information at this point. I'm sure we've got some folks that say, hey, you know what, I don't know if I want somebody cleaning a porta-john,
Sure.
55 feet from my house, and it may smell strange. So I want to make sure that the owners or the prospective owners are looking at being able to answer those questions in a public forum. Anybody that's out there watching on our video and our YouTube channel. If you don't mind, would you could do that for me?
Mr. Michael Wynn.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity to present here tonight. My name is Michael Wynn, and I'm the president of Greenmark Waste Solutions. So with respect to the porta-johns, no actual waste will be brought back, right? Like all the containers that are set there will be clean, and there will be no chemicals in there, and it's only used for storage. And so if anything is brought back to the site, it's already been cleaned and sanitized and brought back for storage.
Okay, so that's going to be off-site somewhere else.
Correct. So if you think of a porta potty, it sits at a construction site. Before it's brought back, it will be cleaned, emptied, disposed of, and brought back to our site for storage.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that was made clear to the gallery as well as my peers out here. Anybody else have any?
Speaking of workforce, will the jobs that you plan to hire for, will they be living wage jobs where individuals won't just be at the restaurants and retail, but maybe become homeowners in Kennedale?
Yeah, absolutely. That is definitely the plan, right? Like we hope to hire, potentially up to 75 to 100 people kind of at this location between drivers, mechanics, accountants, HR professionals. And so, we're looking to be, deeply rooted in this community. And, we have some current drivers that live kind of in the neighboring kind of area, as well, currently. So.
Thank you.
So I noticed on your site plan or the properties that you're coming together, there's one piece of it right there on the parkway that is not included. And in my mind, it makes sense that all of that would be consolidated into one, given the scope of the operations that y'all are doing. Can you speak to why that one property, because I believe there's a home on it?
Yeah, this is Clay Huddleston. He's in the land dealing, so he has a little bit more intimate information on this.
Yeah, hey, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm more on the real estate side. Michael's on the operation side. So the sites that we've got under contract right now are the sites that Kennedale Campers owns. They don't own that site in the middle. So we can't consolidate something that we don't own.
Have y'all looked into purchasing that property?
We would be open to it, definitely. I mean, we've had conversations about it, but I don't think we've had reached out to the owner that lives there. I don't think we've had any substantial conversations about it, though. But yes, we would be open to it, yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion at this time? Okay, appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much, staff.
Good evening, Commissioners. Happy to be here. Welcome, everybody. Love the Planning and Zoning Commission. We meet the fourth Thursday of the month, every month. Come on out. City Council meets third Tuesday of the month. We got EDC that just happened, BOA when needed, and it's a beautiful part of the public process. So I'm glad everyone's here. Regarding this particular case, I won't go into the specifics. I think we've identified the location. It's the old Kennedale Campers sites, just under 8 acres. And before Kennedale Campers, their site, they owned an undeveloped tract that's next to it. And it was 2 separate tracts at one point. That is since, through operation of law, that property has been consolidated and platted as one filed. So now it's one continuous piece of property. And so the existing structure, again, has offices like they've spoke to. It's got service bays, warehouse space. I've been in it. It's real nice, actually, inside. And it's got an existing cyclone fence with barbed wire around the site. Surrounding that, obviously, we've got some single family to the north. We also have single family to the west, which is a manufactured home community, different type of single family housing, still single family housing. To the west, across the creek, and then across the parkway, I'm sure you're familiar, we have some vacant spaces, we have automotive shops, I think there's a real estate office, but it's currently zoned Old Town 4, and the current zoning district does not allow for this specific use, which is the general offices and services, comma, construction and building services, and it has an outdoor storage component. So the outdoor storage component as an accessory use, not the primary use, is an important factor. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but we did meet with staff back in December, with their team back in December. Great conversation with them. And I'll tell you, when I meet with developers and folks coming into town, I always ask, hey, have you read our comprehensive plan? And in 2.5 years, this is the only group that said yes. And our new comprehensive plan, so kudos to that. So we'll talk a little bit more about the comp plan here in just a second and tonight. But when I hear that, I'm like, okay, we got someone that's done their due diligence into Kennedale. And so we talked about, okay, what are the specific uses that we can define this as, right? What do we have on the books currently? There's 2 definitions that we looked at. I looked at the waste management facility, we looked at the waste management facility and a site used, it's defined as this, as a site used for collecting waste and recyclables, sorting, transferring materials, not including recycling processes. Then we also looked at the general offices and services, the comma, construction, building. It's in the books that way. I didn't write it that way, but it's a long definition. But with that, it has to do with service industry, construction, commercial uses, outdoor storage, things of that nature. And so we believe that the most appropriate definition isn't a waste management facility, even though they've talked a little bit about that, since they're not storing refuse there, trash and debris, anything like that. The appropriate definition is that general offices and services. And so the request for a planned development, that obviously meets the acreage to do that. We felt that was appropriate. Also, within the planned development, like we've discussed before, it allows us to have a little bit more control over and above your standard zoning districts in town. So we looked at land use compatibility as well. It's one of the discussions we had. The Kennedale campers, so you had outdoor display, right? You had a barbed wire, you can go in there, shop around. They did some assembly as well. There wasn't any screening on the existing site today or when that business was in operation. But given that this incoming business also involves heavy equipment, heavy commercial vehicles, just like the RV, it's similar to the previous use that was there. And so therefore, we find it compatible. We looked at consistency with the comprehensive plan, future land use plan. So we'll look at that. Is it consistent with that future land use plan? And even though today it's zoned Old Town 4, the future land use plan actually does not include this part of the parkway. It's kicked back a little further west and encompasses everything where we have existing residential and some other types of mixed use. But this site in the future land use plan doesn't show it to be in the true Old Town district. So it is, in that sense, consistent with the future land use plan. And that area is defined as just a commercial area. I want to highlight a couple areas and how the comprehensive plan defines what a commercial area is. It's primarily a commercial or a business on a high-speed, auto-oriented roadway. That sounds like the parkway, right? And it is accustomed, it was uses regionally oriented with high traffic, right? High employment. We heard about some of those high employment numbers. If they hire 75 to 100 people, they'll be one of the largest employers in Kennedale. Businesses, commercial services, so things of that nature. Their future land use plan, comprehensive plan that we have. This proposal, we found that is consistent with your adopted plan. Moving forward, what objectives of your comprehensive plan does this proposal meet? Because that's important. Just because it matches this, we don't just color coordinate here in town, right? Oh, it's pink, it's got to be pink. It's red, it's got to be red, right? No, there's specific goals and objectives of the plan that have to be met. And so one of the plans, or one of the objectives of the plan, it's on page 83 of your comp plan, it says this: proposed rezoning, continue to capitalize on a strong industrial employment workforce to leverage demand for destination-based retail and restaurant opportunities. Okay, so what that means is we need to continue to support our local businesses, but incoming businesses, employers, to help support. This is a funny word for me. I don't know about you, for you, but tertiary sector jobs, right? So those, you got your primary jobs, then you have all those jobs that come and get supported based off of that, right? Hope I said that right. Anywho, okay. So with the closure of Kennedale Campers, that's a longtime Kennedale employer. This proposal is backfilling lost employment in town, right? And so when we can't backfill that, it's the other businesses that get supported. It's the donut shop down the corner, right? I used to see them walk across the parking lot all the time to go get a donut. It's a great donut shop in town, I'll tell you that. But it's those businesses and the place across the street things that get affected when we lose a long-time employer. And so it is consistent with those economic development objectives of the comprehensive plan. And so I'll conclude that, is it consistent with your plans? Yes, and therefore we recommend approval. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, first one off the bat. One of the reasons I asked about the whole waste management being brought back, resanitized, that was because of that waste management coding versus the long-winded one we're looking at. So, okay, you answered my question on that. Second one, the concrete that's out there, how long has that been out there? I'm imagining this equipment might be a little bit heavier or a different weight class.
Well, an RV is rated.
Oh, they're
as,
heavy.
yeah, they're heavy. So I imagine they'll it's rated appropriate for that. I don't know what the PSI is of the concrete that's out there. I'm sure part of their due diligence is taking a look at that. If there's any repairs that are needed, I'm sure they'll need to do that.
Okay, and that was another one, just make sure they were aware of, I'm not sure how old that concrete is, it's been there a while. So I can imagine it might be coming due, if not close to being due, for some sort of a refinishing with that, damaging the property itself, causing aesthetic issues if someone is to actually see behind that wall. Thank God for walls. The next one, and I know this is probably a question and light bulb has gone off in the crowd out here, truck traffic. How are we looking at as far as being able to, I don't know how big this fleet's going to be and what the, shall I say, the moding of how often they're going to come in, what times they're going to come in. I mean, that might be another question back to the folks over there, the owners, but I'm sure that's something that the city would be interested in hearing and see how that's going to impact our actual, our travel and destination capabilities.
Sure. So we talked about that specifically because that was one of the first questions I asked. And so part of their operations is early in the morning before the rush hour hits, they exit the parkway to their respective locations, right? So whether that's north on the parkway or they continue further south down the parkway. The strategic reason why they're looking at it is that when they come back from the landfills and they come up Dick Price, and they come down the parkway, they're turning right into the site, and they're not having to cross the parkway to cause traffic congestion by coming in the opposite direction. And so one of the things I know that the police department will look at, so is code compliance, is we have thoroughfares that are only for commercial traffic. So we'll that's something that we asked about, and that's why we don't anticipate any crossing of the parkway during the rush hours because of how they operate, coming back to the site.
Okay, but that's not something we can mandate as a city, so that's one of those partnership understood, shake the hand type thing. But like I said, my concern on that one is obviously that area, especially and during certain periods of time, can be quite hair-raising, if you will.
Sure. I mean,
I don't know anything about that, but hair-raising events, especially when the lights are down over at the 287 82020 exchange, that does actually back all the way back into Old Town. I can imagine that's going to be, the next couple of years, yes, I'm looking at short-term, but long-term, hopefully it'll work out. But I know that's, I just the chatter I hear, traffic seems to be a large concern of the community, so I wanted to make sure that was brought up.
Thank you for bringing that up. We can speak more to the applicants following that on getting some more minutia before we get to council. There are instances in town where even myself, had some hair raisement, so that's something that we can certainly consider. But happy to answer any additional questions that you have.
That's all I had. Anybody else?
So Nathan, hold on one second. So we had, so the front facade is what's going to be screened, right? It's just the front that's going to have the masonry wall, or is there the masonry wall going between the houses as well?
So the facade itself will be visible. It's the main point of entry. It's the outdoor storage areas where there will be a masonry wall screened. Now, because on the backside where you have the creek, you can't put solid fencing back there, so that will, I think we talked about maybe some landscaping or something like that to provide some screening to still allow for the flow. But if you on to the north, you have existing residential, and they have some fencing that's back there, and the site has barbed wire that's being replaced with 8-foot masonry wall.
Thank you.
Any further discussion at this time? Okay. Well, from what I've understood, this seems to be a plus for the city. It is, it's appropriate, and I don't see any personal grievances as well. Just like I said, I know there's going to be the general, how's this going to affect my travel to work? How's this going to affect the aesthetics of the town, et cetera? And hopefully we can continue to identify those things and mitigate them as long as possible as we go along. But at this time, I'll go ahead and we can do the consideration for the proposed zoning change from OT4 to PD for those lots along 409 through 429 and the Woodley Acres edition of Kennedale. Can I get a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we make a zoning change from OT4 Old Town to PD plan development for the 400 Parkway and 413 West Kennedale Parkway lot. Plat.
Need a second, please.
I second the motion.
All right, all in favor? And no opposed, so it's 4-0, ma'am. It will pass. Consideration to City Council. All right, without further ado, what everybody's here for, the main event. PZ case 25003, do not shoot the messenger. To conduct a public hearing and consider a proposed zoning change from C2 General Commercial District and R2 Single Family Residence District to PD, which is Planned Development, for 3780 Kennedale New Hope Raceway Estates Edition, Lot 1B as in Bravo, 3780 Kennedale New Hope Raceway Estates Edition, Lot 7B, improvements on 3780 Kennedale New Hope, Lot 7B, less improvements, 3830 Kennedale New Hope, Richie Robert C. Survey Abstract, 1327, Tract 1B as in Bravo, Snyder, Joel Survey Abstract, 1448, Tract 0A as in Alpha, 03 of the City of Kennedale, Tarrant County, Texas, and 76060. At this time, ma'am, I'm going to open it up for public discussion at 6:43. Those that have signed up. Just a reminder again, this is something that is discussionary. It is to speak your mind, to give your thoughts and your concerns. We unfortunately not really able to engage you at this time, but we will take notes for that and engage the appropriate authorities at that point and do our best to get those concerns answered. At this time, ma'am, go ahead.
Yes, Commissioner, Chairman. The first person that I have in front of me is Ms. Sheila Jones. Ms. Jones, are you willing to speak? Yes, ma'am, thank you. The second request I have is Jeff Madrid. Mr. Madrid, are you willing to speak? Yes. Please come to the podium. You will have 3 minutes.
And sir, when you approach the podium, please make sure the microphone is on. Speak your name, your address, and again, 3 minutes. Your timer will be up on the walls.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Madrid. I live at 4074 Kennedale New Hope Road, Kennedale, Texas. I am here tonight to voice my opposition to the zoning change. I've had a lot of different reasons for that since first became aware of this over the last few weeks. 3 days ago, after being able to read the staff report, I got quite the chuckle out of the compatible with adjacent uses statement. I drive that road every day, and the houses that are adjacent to that property on New Hope Road look nothing like what's being proposed. I understand in the past the city has had different developers, or at least one developer that proposed going in there, and they were rejected because of lot size. That's a bit ironic, considering we're now looking at 50-foot to 60-foot wide lots. I have nothing against Trinity Habitat for Humanity. I think what they do is absolutely commendable. They're a great service to the county. But there are a lot of things that need to happen before we start talking about development of New Hope Road. The first and foremost of those is access. Until we fix the access problem to New Hope, with the Little Road project, which I understand the city's in a bind because the costs have gone way up. But until you fix that access issue, we have no business talking about development of that area. I spent 8 years in a city where I was on the volunteer fire department, and half of our district was divided by railroad tracks. And until you sat there and watched something burn because you can't get to it, it'll break your heart. Until we can do something about that access, I don't think we have any business talking about developing anything. And I'll release the rest of my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Your concerns are noted. Ma'am?
Yes, sir. The next speaker, Cassandra Lawrence. Ms. Lawrence, are you willing to come to the podium to speak?
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am not a resident of Kennedale. I'm your neighbor. I live in Mansfield, Texas, just down the street. I'm here representing Habitat for Humanity because I am a Habitat homeowner. And I can understand your concern about needing to get to those homes quickly. I think those things are coming because I see your development. I see the heart of the city. Why? Because I'm your neighbor. I pass through here quite often. What I want you to mostly focus on is the need. There are families like myself, hardworking. I didn't get the house for free. I pay taxes. I take ownership of my property. I am involved in the community. I started out being a mom of 2 little girls who needed a quiet, safe place to live. And Mansfield afforded me that, okay? I used to commute back and forth to work. Because of Habitat, I've had a lot of opportunity to think a lot clearer because it provided me the stability that I needed. And because of that stability that it provided, I am now a business owner, small business owner that works out of my home. So I not only live in the community, I'm not only a fabric of the community, I give back to my community with volunteerism. I help build all my neighbors' homes. My taxes, I pay taxes. What's even more interesting is I even have a friend here from my daughter's employer. That's how much they care about us. They came to represent the fact that we are there. We're not just people stuck in the back with dilapidated homes because we care about our property. The people that invest in our lives, we invest right back. We are the essential work group. We're the working class. I'm not driving a Mercedes Benz. I'm driving a normal car just like like some of my neighbors. I get a chance to speak to my neighbors every day. I see them I'm in healthcare. I see them at the hospital sometime. I visit the nursing homes where some of their mothers and aunts are living now, and I live right down the street. I see them at the grocery store. Habitat has afforded me an opportunity for stability. With stability comes a greater economic impact to your community. We become the fabric of your community. We give back. How do I know this? Because owning a Habitat home was not easy, by any means. I got out there and I worked. I literally cut all my nails off. I was one of those girls. I loved looking with the long nails. Nope, not with Habitat. I cut my nails back just to get out there and build my own home.
All right, ma'am, time.
Thank you.
I appreciate your testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Stephen Martinez. Mr. Martinez. You will have 3
Hello,
minutes.
council. Thank you for having me. Stephen Martinez, 409 Hanover Street, Burleson, Texas. But prior to that, I have 5 residences here in Kennedale that I pay taxes on every year. So I believe I have a say-so like everybody else does. I oppose this thing that's trying to be put in. I see that property could be used for something better. And the reason I say that is because right now, like it was stated prior, our roads can't handle 250 more for every, so you have 250 homes. Each home has 2 people that I'm sure drive. You're looking at 500, 750 cars coming through here. That's insane. We cannot control what we have right now. As a matter of fact, being brought up, I would actually like to purchase this property. I own 10 landscape companies. I would like to relocate my landscape companies as a whole to this property. But I would also like to open the track back up as extra income, give jobs to the youth here, along with my landscape businesses. I employ 142 employees with my landscape companies. Not to say the youth here that I can employ during the summertime to keep our youth out of trouble. I can have them maintain the track, pay them, minimum wage to maintain the track. It's something that's not offered here. So bring the kids out, let them clean up the track, let them, just do whatever to earn some extra money. For one, it'll help the parents, give them a safe haven for the kids to come out and hang out in, and basically allow everybody to come back home to do what majority of people in here like to do. A lot of us like to race. I mean, that's something that Kennedale needs. Right now, a lot of people don't want to come into Kennedale because there's nothing here. There's nothing. If we bring the track back and I'm able to purchase the property, we will do some things like I was stated before. I stated, maybe a drive-in or something of that sort on property to, allow car meets and stuff of that sort to come in. Again, bring in more people. With that, it would put a stress on the city to also bring in restaurant chains, laundromats, stuff of that sort. And it would definitely help out a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, ma'am.
Next on our list, Ronnie Hipp. Mr. Hipp.
Hello, my name is Ronnie Hipp. I don't live in that area. I live over here behind QT on Oakcrest Drive. But the city of Kennedale cannot afford a 250 house development going in because they do not have the infrastructure. Don't have the money to update the roads, to update, everything needs to be done before that is, developed. Like the other man said, let somebody come in that can take and do things with the money that they have to help the city. I tried to purchase that racetrack out there a few years ago when I had the money to purchase it, but they didn't want to sell at the time. Because I was thinking the same thing to him. Bring the revenue back. Everybody's left here and went to Ennis, to the 2 big giant tracks over there. Okay? Kennedale was founded on the racetracks and the salvage yards, not a bedroom community. And that's what is looking for Kennedale now, is a bedroom community. People come in from other places where they don't like the regulations and the restrictions, move down here, and then they want to flip everything over to where what they just came from. Okay, we're a small town, but we're not a bedroom community. Everybody in here works. You can take a look up, every road here has some kind of business on it. I don't care if it's a 1-man job or a 10-man job. everybody in the city of Kennedale works for what we have. You know, putting in 250 houses over there ain't going to take and help the city of Kennedale short-term or long-term. I dealt with Habitat for Humanity in Dallas. And the only people over there that got into the Habitat for Humanity over there was Section 8. Because all the houses they built along Dolphin Road was rentals. I know these are supposed to be homeowners with the 80-year, restriction on, settling and all that stuff there. The people that we have in the world today don't live in a single spot for 80 years. Something's going to, they're supposed to be able to sell it for 80 years. What are they going to do? They're going to just, die and the house just sit there? That's something you got to look at is, the restrictions they're putting on it to be able to build it. And what are you going to take and get for $175,000 today in the building model? A tiny house. You're not going to get what these folks took and built right there by the racetrack, $400,000, $500,000 homes that's been there for years. And they were valued at that 20 years ago. You look at the value of it now, there's even more.
Thank you very much, sir, for your words there. All right, go ahead, ma'am.
Next, Micah Hogue.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I actually grew up right down the road. 287 was Hawkins Cemetery and
Sir,
Midlothian.
Real quick, can you state your name?
I'm Micah Hogue, and I
your
work for
address.
Trinity Habitat for Humanity. I am the Home Buyer Success Coordinator, and I'm thrilled to hear about the hardworking people in Kennedale, right? Because that's what I need if this is approved. I wanted to come here and represent the families because I'm looking online and I'm seeing things that I don't think represent what we do at Habitat. Habitat for Humanity, our breakdown from 2021 through 2023, transportations, goods, and distribution. Your supply chain employees represent 24%, right? Medical field, 19%. I have 34 families right now, 5 of them are nurses. You have 7% teachers or teachers' aides, 7%, we do have landscaping, 1%. Repair, utilities, food service, 4%, your tertiary workers, right? Customer service, 15%, the other 7%, banking, insurance, and finance, right? I did a breakdown of the 34 we currently have. Those 34 people average 7.5 hours of overtime on a weekly basis, right? These are hardworking people, like Cassandra over here. So what does it take? You have to take financial literacy courses. You got to take community engagement courses, right? And then you got to take, with the city of Fort Worth, you got to do a lot of things, like she said, to get approved. I think the biggest thing is, passionate and nervous. I think the biggest thing to take away from what I will do as the person that's coming in to bring these families, right, is I'm coming to this community. I'm coming to the churches. I'm coming to the schools, right? I'm not trying to bring people to Kennedale. I'm trying to deliver to people in Kennedale. So when we talk about traffic on these roads, these are people that are already on these roads. These construction workers, the nurses, the medical field, the education, the social services, all of these people already live here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next speaker, ma'am.
Next speaker, James Connor.
Name is James Connor. I live at 501 West 3rd Street in Kennedale, Texas. As a former city council member, I have intimate details about this property. In 2021, Double Eagle tried to develop this area. At the time, the preserve on Green Oaks and Kelly Elliott in Arlington, which was also a DoubleTree product, was zoned RS 7.2, which is Arlington code for single-family residential. After it was coded for 27 single-family homes, that developer went back to Arlington, turned it into a PD, which is what they are requesting. Instead of putting those 27 homes there, they put 53 townhomes. They can change whatever they want. So what you see on paper, or what was been circulating, is not always what's going to go there. Let's keep that in mind. Now, the city of Kennedale, through my council, has very strict PD rules through a UDC, which was just recently updated, so I haven't read it. Did want to let you know that they can potentially put whatever they want there, including townhomes, duplexes, or single-family residential. There has not been any topographical engineering, nor hydrological engineering. The area is a flood zone, and with New Hope Road just being 2 lanes, it becomes a safety hazard in the area. The city just redid that bridge down there, but the road itself cannot handle the weight of 18-wheelers. Look at Kennedale Sublet in front of Hammock Creek, for example. We all drive down that road sometime or another. It has potholes in it now, it has dips right in front of Hammock Creek because of the 18-wheeler traffic. That's what's going to happen in New Hope, because this is a 10-year phased project, not 2. And not to mention that the road in the area can't even be widened because the easement of the city of Fort Worth owns in front of the track, which is evident on the Argus maps. Let's take a look at our zoning, shall we? Look in front, there's a big strip of white. It says City of Fort Worth on it. Kennedale doesn't own that land. City of Fort Worth does. So we can't widen the road. 200 plus homes in the area after completion of the phase development would add nearly 600 more cars. I'm sorry, but 200 plus people don't all live in Kennedale right now that need a Habitat for Humanity home, even though their projects are great. I've seen them. They look nice. I did also want to say that, remember, this is a planning and zoning commission, not just a zoning commission. The city needs a plan for this. Once that happens, then we can look at zoning. This is a great development. However, currently it's not in the right area. Not until the infrastructure, including a widened New Hope, is in place and emergency services are built in the southern inner city to forego the emergency services issue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, John Roan.
John Roan. I live at 500 South New Hope Road. I've been coming to Kennedale since I was about 4 years old. Grew up racing at Cowtown Speedway. Currently race at Kennedale Speedway. I bought my wife's family home. And the first thing I think of is I grew up dirt poor, single mom. Dad passed away when I was 5. So the Habitat for Humanity does hit home, because I wish that there were better options for this. However, you have the problem with the train. And the current infrastructure now, the sanitary sewer line is 500 foot away from my house. So when my father-in-law built the house, his sanitary sewer line had to run in 500 yards or 500 foot just to tie into the city main. So where's that going to go? I don't even see a drainage plan. I do dirt work for a living. You have no detention pond. And so you've laid out this great plan, but you haven't done any soil tests, geological tests. And where's all the runoff going to go? Right onto my house? Because everything right now feeds right behind my house and into the ditch, going down to the creek. So I think there's a lot more due diligence that needs to be done prior to even planning a housing community. It's inevitable, people need homes. We've got land. It's no big secret here. If y'all moved in, right? If y'all did move in, are y'all gonna hate the racetrack? I mean, that's my home. The racetrack's my house. And, it's loud on Saturday nights. It's loud on Friday nights. But it's a place for kids to go, and it's a place for you to take your family and have a good time. And those are getting hard to find. Affordable fun is getting hard to find. You can't go anywhere. You can't go to Tinseltown. You can't go to AMC theaters without spending $70. It's $10 to get at this racetrack. It's affordable. It's what this town was built on, and we're constantly trying to push it out. And I just don't understand. You have one of the biggest cities in the country within a rock throwing distance, and we can't pander to them, which just seems crazy to me. And you have such a great community, and the development sounds like a good idea, but there's a lot more due diligence that needs to be done that I haven't seen anything being done other than a bunch of homes being put on land. And it always sounds good on paper until you get a civil engineer involved and you find out you're not even gonna be able to develop half of it. So then what? You have another 40 acres that you can't get tax revenue on? Seems like a lot more due diligence needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker, Jeff Morris.
Evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. My family and I live at 414 South New Hope Road. My neighbors on both sides were sent letters about this, but because my property line is more than 200 feet away from the racetrack, I was not sent a letter, regardless of the fact that my home is physically closer to the drag strip than some of my neighbors. I'm not complaining about that. That's just how the line was drawn. My concern with developing that area, and many of the people who have spoken here tonight, and I'm a supporter of Habitat for Humanity. I've done projects with them in the past. It's a fine organization. This is not an appropriate area for them to put a development on without having the infrastructure. And that's been said here before also tonight. We have a problem with emergency vehicle and police access with the train tracks the way they are. There's a problem with utilities down there. There is a problem with traffic down there. That's a two-lane country road that is rapidly becoming a major thoroughfare for people trying to get around Mansfield Highway. As Mansfield Highway, and y'all have said this earlier tonight, backs up into Old Town and sometimes even past Old Town. I've seen it backed up all the way to the stoplight at Hudson Cemetery there. People divert off that, go over past the racetrack and come down Kennedale Road. We've had multiple accidents out there. We've had problems with emergency vehicle access, like I said that. I think you're getting your cart ahead of the horse. Until you have that infrastructure out there, somebody mentioned an additional fire station out on the south end of town on the other side of the train tracks. I think that's a phenomenal idea. This town has grown. We've got 3 pieces of apparatus in 1 station. There should not be that much of an issue with moving a 4-man crew into a building out there. There are plenty of buildings out there, and putting a 2nd station out on the south side of town. Anyway, I yield the rest of my time. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker, Elisha Woodson.
Hi, I'm Alicia Woodson, 405, I've been called worse, 405 Linda Road here in Kennedale. I also am within 200 feet and did not receive a letter of the track. And just like everyone else that's spoken, I mean, Habitat for Humanity is a great organization, have no problems with that. Infrastructure, all of the things. What about our property taxes? So we're talking houses that are going to be much lower cost. So how does that affect? I don't know. Don't know any of these things, but how does that affect our taxes? Like, is that going to drop my property value? Getting all of our fire and police, like how many times have I heard how many our fire and our police departments are not happy, or because they're short-staffed, or we've had to cut this, or we've cut that. What are we going to do with them? And how do they get over there? We've gone through I went with a friend and we went and spoke to almost every single one of our neighbors. And not a single person that we spoke to was for this. Every single person down Valley Trail and on Linda that is right there within the 200 feet, they don't want this. Not a single neighbor that I spoke to was for this. Because we're agreeing that we put the cart before the horse on all of these things. We have so much that needs to be done before we can even consider like building anything over there. We can't get our houses over there. When the bridge was being built, how many times were we having to see on Facebook all of the traffic because we couldn't get anywhere just because the bridge is built, and then you had hours where people were stuck behind that. What happens if there's an accident and a train? We've got people that can't get insurance on their house because they can't get, the insurance company has denied them insurance on their home because of the fire trucks and the fire safeties. I agree with everything that's being said, that's that we have to stop and think about the plan before we can start changing the zoning. Going back to the apartments that have been built. When we were told about the apartments, it was supposed to have all of these great businesses below with the residential above. That's not what's there. So we're gonna go ahead and keep approving things and then lie to us, or not really lie, but I felt like y'all were lied to, but like, where are we gonna be at? We need to have a plan before you approve anything else. There should be a plan in place for how we're gonna fix all of the things that we're already griping about. So we just keep adding on to it. We're already behind budget. Let's lower prices and drop all of our tax values. I don't understand the concepts between this. Like, I don't see how this is best for our community or our city at all. So.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Next speaker, Jerry Hull.
Hi, Jerry Hull, 460 South New Hope Road. I have a lot to say, but I'm going to stick with something different that I believe others will not have touched on. I have a petition against this. There are approximately 25 homes and landowners on New Hope Road, 25 on the Village Trail side that are within the 200 feet. Today I have 14 signed on Village, 14 signed on New Hope, a total of 65 acres against this project. Again, like everyone said, humanity is great, but it's not for this area. Some information I have found along the journey of the petition. 4 people within 200 feet did not get the notice. This doesn't fit this neighborhood. All on this petition are homeowners of half acres and more. Insurance companies are denying homeowners coverage due to the railroad tracks because they can't get to them in time, the fear of them not being able to get to them in time. Tarrant County tried something years ago and EPA stopped them due to the bad soil testing on the drag strip. Gas, water, electric easements going down property lines on New Hope Road. I know that for a fact because that goes down my family's house. Flooding, no drainage testing is concerning. 100-year flood zones, how can you guarantee our homes will not flood now? New Hope floods. How do I know? Because I live on that downhill and all that water comes to my house. Concerns outside of the infrastructure. 700 more cars on our road. And future access to Kennedale Parkway when Alta Mesa comes through, you are removing, I believe, 3 streets. So you're adding 700 more cars to get onto Kennedale Parkway. I just don't see how that's gonna work. Other concerns. What if the Habitat for Humanity can't finish all 3 phases? And it becomes more than they can afford or handle? Then what? What happens to the rest of that property? I know one of our council members has that concern because they voiced it to someone. Fencing. What kind of fencing are they going to put up? And the control of animals if there is no fences. Safety. New Hope is already shy from being a highway. Have had about 3 different wrecks in my front yard. 1 involved care flight to come out. Bodies be injected in front of our yard. And 1 wreck also took out the front of my fence. You know how scary it is to check your mail when semis are going by and you have all these cars going by fast? It's pretty scary. And I mow my own ditch. The city doesn't mow the ditch. So it's pretty scary to be out there mowing your ditch. I ask for you to imagine you and your family living in this area. If this is something you wouldn't put in your backyard, please don't put it in my backyard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Luann Hull.
My name's Luann Hull. I live at 416 South New Hope Road. I also have property at 450 and 470 New Hope. A lot of my concerns have already been spoken, but the houses out there are all on an acre or larger piece of property. Our road is bad, has the dips. Of course, there's been the wrecks, guys killed, kids care flighted to the hospital because of the condition of our road. The road needs to be fixed. Also, the trouble with the train, when it backs us up, we sit there for an hour and can't move, can't get out. There is the concern of if you need an ambulance or a fire and the train's got you blocked, they can't get to you. And it's just crazy to put 260 more houses on that road before all the things that are done that needs to be done to the road, and the bridge over the railroad track needs to be done to give another access out of there. Plus, when you put all these houses there, you're going to want to put another road through to New Hope, because the drag strip just has the one. Well, that's going to be taking either my kids or my grandkids' homes. We bought all that land out there we lived at 100 New Hope Road, and we still own that house. We moved out there to get away from the road, to the traffic, the noises, the four-way stop sign. And we built our houses up off the road. And like Jerry said, wrecks have took out our front fences, trucks rolled all across our property. It's just a lot of improvements need to be made. If y'all take and put another road to accompany these houses, it's going to be taking either one of my kids' houses or my grandkids' houses. Now I've got 3 great-grandkids going to be living there, and you're going to take them away from us. And there's also the police department and our fire department. How are they going to take care of 250 more houses in that area? I oppose this, and I hope y'all agree with us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next speaker, Frank Fernandez.
It's on. First of all, I'd like to thank the people from P&Z that are here. I think the council should be.
Sir, can you go ahead and state your name and your address?
I'm sorry, my name is Frank Fernandez, and I live in 911 Shadyville in Kennedale. But I'd like to thank you guys for being here. I knew this was going to be a tough meeting, and you're going to have to take it up there like a man and a woman. But you know, the other 2 that are not here, I think city council should be notified, because I don't think they're playing by the rules, and that's not right. Just because something is tough doesn't mean that you don't show up and let somebody else make the decision. That's just what I wanted to say about it. The second thing is I'm not going to be talking about crime and police and whatever you want to talk about, okay? This is really, during the last few years, Kennedale has been bombarded with accessible homes, and, you know, for example, the elderly homes that were built over there, Kennedale said, yes, thank you very much, we'll help our elderlies. Then there was 3 apartments that are tax subsidies the one in Sublet, the one behind Albertson, and the one behind Kroger. And there's one more coming to the Little Road area, right by the old Uncle Bob's warehouse. So 4 apartment complexes built within the school district and that Kennedale is involved on. Okay, the second thing is, I don't know if anybody knows, but that area is located in a flood zone. It's not a matter of when it rains hard, I get too much water. That is on a flood zone, okay? And those people, I believe, if they're gonna finance their homes, they're gonna be forced to buy flood insurance, and that's not gonna be subsidized by the government. I mean, they subsidize it, but you're gonna have to pay for it above and beyond. And the third thing is, this thing is gonna affect all of Kennedale, okay? Now, I am one of those that, with a little information, I can become real dangerous. And all I did is I picked up my phone and I asked ChatGPT, what is the average home in Kennedale sells for? Okay? And they say, and he told me, $425,000. Now, don't raise your eyebrows. There are a lot of homes that are below that, a lot below that, but there are some above that that are making it $425,000. That means that you need to collect taxes, whether it's the school taxes, city taxes, or whatever. I'm just going to speak of those two. I don't care about the county or the other ones there. But you need to collect an average of $425,000 home to pay for what actually costs to run the city. Now, if you have a home below that, the ones above that, and there are plenty of those, will raise the value. But that's what it takes, $425,000. At 71 cents, I didn't want to use that 17.67, whatever that is. At 71 cents per hundred, that's $3,017 for the city. Those homes at $170,000 are going to generate only $1,207. Okay? That means that it will take 2 of those homes to pay, more than 2 of those homes, to pay for what it costs to run our fire department and our city.
You're out of time,
I'm
sir.
always
I
late. But
appreciate it.
anyway, I just wanted to point that out. I thank you for your time, and thank you for being here and taking the bullets and arrows.
No worries, sir. Thank you. It's what we're here for.
Mr. Chair, our last speaker that I have paperwork for is Daryl Tippy.
Hi, I'm actually wanting to speak about case 2504.
Yes, sir.
I can speak about if I'm opposed, but I think you heard enough about that.
Yes, sir. We can put you on for the next one. Not a problem. Thank you.
Ma'am, did you want to address the board at this time? Because we're going to close the public hearing at that point. Okay, I'll have no problem listening to you. Okay. All right, well, thank you, ma'am. At this time, it is 7:25. We'll go ahead and close up the public discussion on this case. Staff, did you want to go ahead and take on the rest of it?
Happy to discuss staff report here in just a second. I'd like to go ahead and have the applicants come over and speak about the development, and perhaps they'll answer some of the questions that were raised just a minute ago. Thank you.
Absolutely. Welcome, Kennedy. Folks, if you don't mind what you did here, can you please speak to some of that as much as possible that you can?
Sure. We have a time limit?
All right.
Do
No,
we?
sir. No.
All right, good. My name's Gage Yeager. I'm the CEO for Trinity Habitat for Humanity, born and raised in Fort Worth. Been with Trinity Habitat for 28 years. I love passionate people. You care. You can do a lot with people that care. That's good. Keep caring. That's good and strong stuff. I applaud that. Habitat for Humanity. And I love that you love what we do. That's important. We can't do what we do without people that love what we do. We're a Christian ministry. Love the Lord, love your neighbor. How do we love our neighbor? We build homes. Homes are transformative. It's transformative to the family. It's transformative to the schools. And it's transformative to the neighborhoods. It builds wealth, crime drops, stabilizes. Cassandra said it. Strength, stability, self-reliance. That's what it delivers. It's not a giveaway program. People work hard, as Micah mentioned, as Cassandra mentioned. It's a hand up, not a handout. But what I really want you to think about, and I think you said it earlier, ma'am, is workforce. And this isn't affordable housing. This is workforce home ownership. Apartments are one thing, but home ownership something else completely. When you buy it, you own it, you care about it. Couple of points. Gentleman mentioned median sales prices, and we had the Green Mark folks up before talking about moving a business in, hiring people. So I looked up Redfin Real Estate, have a little graph here. Redfin Real Estate median price homes in Kennedale, $350,000. It's a little bit more than the median price in Tarrant County of, I think, $344,000. I also looked up, okay, so if I'm a hardworking person, don't make enough to pay for that home, which is $114,000 at 7% interest for a 30-year note. What does Kennedale have less than that? Again, per Redfin, 2 homes for sale in Kennedale below $250,000. One of them's $120,000 at 588 square feet. One of them's $198,000 at 928 square feet. Not a lot to choose from. I believe the city manager told our COO that the average person that works in Kennedale has to drive 30 minutes. 30 miles? 30 minutes. 30 minutes to get here. Well, that's an hour a day. That's difficult to parent and do everything that you have to do. How much cooler if you live near where you work and decrease that commute time. I live about 6 minutes from my office. It's wonderful. It's hard to keep people stuck in traffic. Nobody wants to drive and get stuck in traffic forever. Talk about salaries. Again, I'm going to focus in on the workforce piece of this. Police officer in this wonderful city at 5 years makes $77,000. Kennedale Independent School District teacher at the end of 5 years makes just a little under $62,000. Here's a science teacher ad from the KISD website, $60,000 for that job. Average salary in Kennedale per ZipRecruiter, $45,000. Kennedale ISD has, and on their website today, posting for a CFO. Takes a lot of talent to be a CFO. Salary, $98,000. Those are real, and where do they live? I hope they have home ownership because it transforms the lives, and I hope they live near where they work and they become the fabric of the community that Cassandra was talking about. People talked about our deed restrictions. It helps maintain affordability long term. The deed restrictions are transferable, so if it sells, it's not like a deed restrictions, a person can't sell their home. It transfers and goes with the next homeowner. People, I don't think, have understood the 3% annual price increase. You do the math on there. Let's say we sell a home for $180,000. Here's where it is. In 10 years at 3%, that's $247,000. The price does go up. It does appreciate. What it does, it helps the affordability for the homeowner now, and it helps guarantee that Kennedale has attainable, accessible homes for the workforce in the future. It's not going to go away. The problem is not going to go away. Price points for our homes, $180,000 for one level, about $230,000 for another, and just a shade over $300,000 for the other. That takes a minimum income of $53,000, $67,000, and $103,000 to qualify. First two at 5% interest because we have below market interest rates. And the last one, the larger home, would be a 7% just using the approximate what it is today. What else do I have? Quality. Micah mentioned this. Our families go through 20 hours of education. We want to make sure that they're armed. Most of that's financial literacy training. We want to make sure they have solid information. They can make great decisions. Some of that's code compliance and conflict resolution. We go out of our way to train. No other home builder does that. We do a criminal background check. Nobody else does that. We want to make sure that people going into the neighborhood pass our criminal background check. Quality. Our homes are Energy Star certified. They're super energy efficient. That's important. And our homes are built to the fortified standard, which means they can withstand 140 mile an hour wind blast. There's a continuous load path from the foundation up through the walls, all the way through the trusses and the nailing pattern and the taping pattern on the decking on the roof. We build an excellent quality home. Habitat foreclosure rate, 2.5% since 1989. Our families work hard. Sandra had to cut her nails. But they work hard. They freeze to death or sweat to death. They're out there helping build their home for the H1 version of our houses. And our current mortgage portfolio is 95%, actually 96% as of today. Steve, you know, come up and hit some of the pieces. You guys have a comprehensive plan you talked about. From the staff report that I read, we checked every box, and then after me, Christine will come up, and then there's some civil engineering that our civil engineer will discuss right after that. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Steve Smith. I'm the Land Development Director for Trinity Habitat for Humanity. I want to talk to more of the facts specifically about this particular project. And of course, what we're requesting is a zoning change from the current zoning C2 into a residential plan development zoning. In looking at the city's comprehensive plan that was just passed in September, the land use plan component of that calls for this to be medium density residential. And so that our request is consistent with what the just recently passed comprehensive plan provides. Total number of lots we're going to build will be dependent upon a number of things. One will be a full-blown drainage study. We've done some preliminary, our engineers have done some preliminary work now, and that's how we came up with the 200, right now it's a 230 lot layout that we're looking at, but that will only be finalized once we go do a drainage study for the entire property, make sure what we will need in that regard, whether it's detention, whatever is needed, all of that will be done and approved by the city before we can start development on that. The other component about the number of lots and the kind of the phasing that we're going to do is dependent upon final location for where the city and county want to put the extension of Little School Road. So on our plan, we've just plugged it in there where the current plan is from the government entities. If it changes, then that'll change it. But that's in developing our plan, that will be that. And obviously, depending on where they put the road, it may impact the total number of lots we have. My guess is it'll be somewhere between 230 and 245. But again, that will be dependent upon the several factors, but again, the final drainage study and the Little School Road extension. Our lot sizes will be a mix of 50-foot and 60-foot lots, different size houses, all of them larger than the R4 category. So, kind of fitting in that R3, R4 size. Part of our development standards is we won't put, sometimes with certain lots, if you've got air condensers, beside each house, it kind of gets crowded. All of our condensers will be back behind the house. So that way you've got a cleaner, in effect, a cleaner looking lot layout there. All of our houses will have either have driveways and either 2-car garages or a 1-car garage and another parking spot behind the front building line for parking. Sidewalk throughout the subdivision in front of all the houses, and then we'll also have trees and, as part of the development standards in the PD, we'll also, have a tree requirement and also shrubbery requirements for that. So in all of the houses, as part of the construction of the house, that'll go in there. We'll be building, as far as the infrastructure grows, we'll be building concrete streets throughout, wide enough so that you could have parking on both sides and emergency vehicles can still, make their way through the area. The water line is currently in place with sufficient capacity down on the west side of Kennedale New Hope Road. Sewer, we will be paying, the city currently has a bond project where they will be extending the sewer, a new sewer line to the north edge of our property. We will be initially paying for the installation of a 10-inch line all the way up to connect up to that. So it was kind of an oversized line to also will service other people further down, upstream, I guess, if you will, further to the south, so there'll be sufficient sewer capacity for the development. As I mentioned, this will be a phased development. Our current plan is we'll start at the south end, and we'll put two access roads off of Kennedale New Hope Road into the subdivision there, and then we will work our way to the north. Currently, we're thinking we're going to probably have about 100 houses in the first phase. That'll obviously depend upon engineering and where it makes sense to stop the first phase of the subdivision. And then we'll either do a second phase or maybe end up having to do 3 phases. That'll be dependent in large part upon when the final location is determined by the city and county about the location of the extension of Little School Road. Because we can't plan it. We got to make sure that we know where that is going to be before we can extend it all the way. So if it gets time for another phase that hasn't been determined, we would just kind of stop short of that. But again, we'd be developing the lots from the south end of the property up to the north end of the property. Okay, another part of this development is the public park. And so our plan will be, I guess this is currently subject to a development agreement where we have to dedicate at least a 100-foot wide strip for the park. Our plan would be to dedicate everything that's not part of our residential development to the city for a park. And so in a part of that, we will also construct a hike and bike trail across the property in the long-term plan for the city is a hike and bike trail that would go through there and eventually connect up to Sonora Park. So we're going to build that as part of our development. The other things we would provide, and this is based upon input from exactly what the city wants. I've contacted the YMCA and haven't heard back from them yet about kind of what they may need. But we're thinking a soccer or football fields, picnic table, a gazebo or shade area, those kind of facilities that we would construct, as part of donating it to the park. The idea that I'm most excited about will be in part to hit another part of what I want to talk about, and that is we want to honor the prior use of this property. We want to call it Victory Village. We'd like to name all the streets after racing terms, Victory Lane, that kind of thing. We want to pour a couple of strips of concrete, 25 yards long or whatever, stripe it off with a start and finish line so kids can drag race their bicycles through the park. The drag strip has been an important part of the community, and so we want to honor that with some of our recreational kind of developments there. We also would probably like to include a monument or some kind of signage that gives some explanation about the history of the drag strip over the years. As Gage mentioned, part of this, from a real estate perspective, is also all of our sales, all of the lots that get sold are subject to restrictive covenants. That requires, one, that the property be owner occupied. So no, this won't be rentals, this won't be bought by investors, whatever. These will be, the occupants will be the owners who will maintain the property better. And again, these are for 80-year terms, so whenever they sell it, the next person is also obligated to be the owner occupant. All of our future purchasers have to meet our homeowner requirements, which includes as Gage again mentioned, the background check, no felonies, nobody on a sex offender list, nobody with multiple misdemeanors over the last few years. And then for those with less, that we sell, where we sell them to people who are less than 80% of the average median income, family income, those will also have a restriction that talks about the cap on the increase of how much they can sell it for each year. Again, so that's the purchase price increasing by 3% a year. So that way, again, as Gage mentioned, we can be sure that we don't provide an affordable house to just one family, but for 80 years, that will be an affordable home for whoever may want to live there. So that's what I had. Next is Christine Panagopoulos.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Christine Panagopoulos. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Trinity Habitat, and I see lots of familiar faces, and I want to say, first and foremost, thank you for being involved. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for showing up at the different opportunities that we've had to explain what the project is and explain what Trinity Habitat is. We want folks to ask questions. We want you to hear from us what the story is. While I love ChatGPT, it doesn't work in all circumstances. Trinity Habitat and all habitats around the country are all independent of each other. So you can't ChatGPT what Habitat for Humanity is and get an example of what Trinity Habitat stands for, what our policies are, and how we approve families. Every affiliate, and for us, our service area is Tarrant, Parker, Johnson, and Wise County. Every affiliate has its own board, has its own set of standards, has its own way of approving families and setting families up for success. As Gage mentioned, out of the 1,000 families that we have built homes for, our foreclosure rate is just over 2%, which is phenomenal. We set our families up for success, and we do that with a very thought out and successful education program. With the criminal background checks, we're not bringing criminals to the community. That's not who we are. That's not what we want for our families. Do all habitats do background checks? Unfortunately, no. But I can tell you that we do, and we do it with all of our families. Are these houses going to turn into slums once the builder leaves after 2 years? Again, no, that's not who we are. We're the builder, we're the developer, we're the builder, and we're the mortgage company. So we have a vested interest in these families for the next 30 years. We service their loans, we're involved with their families, and we're involved with them for the next 30 years, so we stay involved. It's who we are. I know you're shaking your head, and I don't know what more to do to convince folks who don't understand the program, but you're hearing it. We're completely transparent in everything we've done, and it is who we are. The deed restrictions, I've heard it said that there's no way that they can be enforced. They can be enforced. The deeds are filed at the time of closing, and anytime that house changes hands when it's sold to the next family, the title company has to enforce those deed restrictions. That house cannot be sold to the next family until they receive a certificate of eligibility from Trinity Habitat for Humanity saying, we've checked their income, we've done a background check, and this house is going to remain homeowner occupied. We've put steps in place not only to protect our homeowners, but to protect our community and your community. Give us a chance. We know what we're doing. We've been in business for 36 years, and we will remain in business for many more years to come with opportunities like this. Thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity, and our civil engineers are going to speak now.
I apologize. My name is Rob Foster. I'm with Topographic, but I did not do a card to speak. I didn't realize there was going to be a lot of questions. But yeah, so unfortunately, a lot of times here at these zoning meetings, y'all see the here and now. You don't see the before. Y'all don't know the length of the project all the time. I'm not saying y'all don't, but there has been some due diligence in this project already. And I hear y'all. I know that infrastructure is important. So I do kind of want to speak to that a little bit. But first off, how did we get here from a civil perspective? We did look at the comprehensive plan, so I did look at it, Nathan, don't worry. Started there. We kind of looked at the surveys, and I'm looking at some right now. A lot of the Kennedites, or however y'all call yourselves, have spoken to the need of biking trails, which we're providing, parks, linear parks specifically per code. That's what we're providing. In terms of housing, Please rank the top 3 housing needs the city of Kennedale needs. Number 2 was the entry-level starter homes. I know custom homes still on there, but y'all speak to both. And then the next portion we looked at was, what does the city allow? What are the goals of the city, right? So the city allows for our medium housing, as Steve spoke to, or the high-density housing. The goals there have been outlined as well. Let's see. I printed it out, so I'll have to flip some pages. Growth management goal, encourage a mix of single-family residential units, appropriately located and design medium to higher density units per the future land use. Talking about floodplain, making sure that's adequately addressed. I know there are some current concerns there. Our layout that we have provided is based on a preliminary modeling system we use called HECRAS. I can speak all the nerdy things you want to hear about that if you want afterwards, but okay, we can speak it. Well, we're in the preliminary stages, so we are doing a flood study right now, so that is a part of the drainage review and the engineering review process. For the benefit of our client, we do want to look at that because that specifically shows us how many lots we can have, lot to infrastructure ratio, right? So we're looking at it, existing velocities are there, we have proposed velocities in there, spread. I have a exhibit, here I'll hand this to you, you can take a look at it. So this exhibit just kind of shows existing and proposed. I may have only given you one. We can talk later. But then the third part I want to talk to is the infrastructure. So a lot of people said there's not infrastructure in place. I heard the city has bond money for 5 years out for Little School Road. That could address your railroad issues of crossing the railroad, possibly. Okay, well, we can talk about that later with the city. So in our comp plans, we have the hydraulic and analysis of all the water lines being put in place, a 12-inch line on New Hope Road. So that should be able to serve our development. And then there's going to be a proposed 10-inch sewer line to both serve our site and then future sites upstream of us. So in terms of infrastructure, it's there. It's going to be there. We're going to be looking at traffic impact analysis at the site. We're going to be including possible turn lanes if needed to mitigate the traffic off of New Hope Road to this new development. So,
Yeah, ma'am, can we let him speak at this time? I definitely want to make sure you guys I understand.
well, there is right of way. There is right of way between the roadway and our development. So if we're talking turn lane, you need 12 feet, maybe a little bit more for a road. You can slip that in. So
you're gonna take the existing right of way and then you're gonna take another 10 from our property? Is that what you're saying?
we're talking about in front of our frontage, just in front of our frontage.
We're talking about when you turn left. I mean, you just gonna turn right straight out on the road and not have to turn, have to fall and flow back into the road?
Well, I don't have any engineering to prove that right now. We're in the works of that. So I don't want to say anything now and just y'all come back and see something different. So I apologize, but we're working through it.
Listen,
So, yeah, no. Yeah. So I just want to speak to all that though, just so y'all know that we have done some due diligence beforehand. This is not a 1 or 2 year project, right? This is going to be 5 to whatever, how many years it takes to do the phasing of it. So when it comes to Little School Road, whatever it takes to get that done, we're going to be working alongside the city, and we already are with Nathan and city engineers with that sewer line to plan everything out, connect into what's planned per the comp plan. So that's all I have to speak on it. Love to talk to y'all after if y'all want. So
okay, yeah, you're gonna have to do it after the meeting because it's we can't have a dialogue right now at this point.
Correct.
Thank you.
Before may I speak? Oh, thank you. Okay. I didn't.
Yeah, it's your floor,
didn't
sir.
get invited, I'm sorry. Don't go nowhere you're not invited. It's a code enforcement principle. Before I start, I want to thank Micah for saying tertiary. So I wasn't sure if I was pronouncing that, so I did take note of that, and I have taken notes. I'm hoping that with the staff report, it'll at least provide those answers that you're looking for. So we'll speak to a little bit of that. And then afterward, again, offline, you're welcome to reach out to me, and we can talk about that. But let's talk about this particular case. And so the question that was posed by a lot of folks was like, timeout. What's the plan? What's the city's plan on development, right? We had this conversation back in '23. If you recall, City Council put in place a moratorium on development. And we said, hey, we need timeout. In the meantime, we were working on this comprehensive plan. This comprehensive plan is the plan for growth that your town has. So every town has a plan. You want to know what the plan is? We have it posted on the website. And that will tell you what the city's goals are for growth and transportation. So tonight I'm going to speak a little bit about facets of that plan, but I do want to note that it was unanimously adopted 5-0 last September. I'm proud of that because it's hard to get a group of people to always agree, right? And so that did occur last year. So here are the second page of that plan. These are the acknowledgements. I want to address something as well that this isn't Nathan's plan, right? This isn't my plan. This isn't my agenda. This is your plan. So these are the stakeholders, the folks that were involved. Your current mayor, current council approved this with also input from the previous administration, staff members, members of the community. Again, this is not my plan. I don't have an agenda. I know that's making its rounds here in town. If I have an agenda, this is what it is. It's our mission statement. I want to thank the city manager for empowering his directors to put in place a mission statement that they felt could accomplish the goals that he has set for us. So this was the mission statement. It's been posted on your website for the last couple of years since we've gotten here. And I want to share facets of that mission statement. So our mission in community development is to facilitate the vision that your community leaders have set for growth and redevelopment. Some other aspects that occur within the city: advanced building safety where possible. Happy to hear about the wind loads. I'm happy to hear about that. I'm a building code guy, so I'm happy about that. Strengthen neighborhoods through proactive administration of our adopted code. So that's our mission statement. It's to facilitate the vision that your leaders have for growth and development in town. It's not Nathan's plan. Part of that plan, when you go through it, is multiple chapters. It's not a long read, it's a short read, but it lays out what those goals are. So we'll talk about growth management, we'll talk about transportation, we'll talk about housing, okay? If you haven't reviewed this plan, you need to get on there and review it. It's how we, when we are approached by developers, we gauge whether or not it's consistent with your plan. So this is your plan, okay? Part of that growth management goal is this: can it all have residential, commercial, and employment growth while retaining its safe and community feel, okay? Kennedale's a hometown, right? Multiple people over and multiple groups over a long period of time have wanted this town to become a bedroom community, things of that nature. But objective number one, how do we meet that goal? Objective number one is to encourage a mix of single-family residential units and appropriately locate them, designed medium to higher density units according to the future land use plan. So it's not just to allow single family, it's not just to provide a mix, but that has to be in accordance with the future land use plan, okay? So your comprehensive plan includes this document, right? So this is what I'm engaging the development community when they come to town. Again, the future land use plan, not what Nathan wants to see in town, right? So here's a snippet of the future land use plan. There's our proposed site. You'll notice that it's shaded in yellow. I'll show you the legend here in just a minute for transparency. But this is showing that in the future, we envision you envision medium, single-family residential at this particular location. A planned development would control what type of housing that would be. And again, that is single-family residential. We've heard it tonight that other previous attempts, and there was references to things in Arlington. Arlington, they have their own prerogative. But a planned development is established by ordinance. If another community decides they want to change their zoning, that's their prerogative. But in Kennedale, that's a difficult thing, right? So I ask people all the time, or people ask me, how sure are you? And I always say, as sure as a zoning change in Kennedale, right? So this right here, though, a planned development is how we control how development meets the standards that you have set for the community. Again, this is showing single family at this location, medium density, but I don't know if you can see this, but where my cursor is, I want to highlight a tract of land right across the street. So right across the street, there is a development that was already approved. The zoning change was already approved, a planned development as well. Same size lots. Lots range from 60, they go down to 50. Right across the street. And they've already obtained a preliminary plat. We talked a lot about sewer infrastructure. Guess what, guys? These folks here, at their cost, not the taxpayer cost, so not your budget, but at their cost, they're gonna bring the sewer line from where it is there, where it stops on New Hope Road, down to and through their development, okay? In the public works field, that's the conversation, that's the term, to and through. You're not just gonna bring the infrastructure to you, you're gonna bring it through you so that future folks could tie into that. So on New Hope Road, guess what? Everybody down there will have opportunity to have access to public sewer, which right now they don't. And I've actually fielded calls from folks wanting to tie in, they want to get off the septic. Further down south, there's other conversations that are happening in town, and there's discussions about further extending that. But that's on the New Hope Road, so that's outside the limits of this development. Within this development, again, like we've heard tonight, they will be installing a sewer line through their property to tie in to serve their property. There's also conversations about if there's potential to extend that, but it's at their cost. Also want to point out that this part of town, the history in Kennedale has long envisioned housing or development on this side of town. In fact, they set apart what's called a TERS, right? Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, to promote and encourage development on this side of town. And so the previous years that was been set up there, but development just hasn't occurred at this location. But that was forecasting the vision of what the city would like to see down here. So again, sewer through the site, sewer right in front of it is coming.
Hey, Nathan, can you explain what a tax incremental reinvestment zone is?
No, I cannot. I'm just kidding. Essentially what it is where the property is assessed right now, future development, what those appraisals are going to be over that period, that difference in the two, that delta, that's what gets captured and can be used as a reimbursement, right, to support or incentivize development within that district. So it's not just this area, but it's this part of town has a TERS set up. I hope I explained that. Okay.
So basically the taxes that will be generated from the development will go back into this area for things like New Hope Road.
Correct. And here in just a couple of slides, we're going to talk a little bit more about roads and the, what the late great Notorious B.I.G. said, the dollar bill, right? So here's that legend I talked about, the future land use plan. Again, it's showing medium residential density. So when you look at that map, we've got things printed in town, in the office. When you see that yellow, that's where the city is showing what we like to see. Now, this isn't set in stone. This is a guide for you, for staff, that when we are approached by folks Does it line up with this? I had a conversation today, and it didn't line up at all, you know? And so I tell them that, hey, man, that don't match. You know, you're gonna have to convince a group of people, you know, to go against their adopted plan, right? So that's a conversation I have almost every day in Kennedale. So moving forward, that was the growth management goals. The other goals for future land use plan are pretty basic. And they're basically saying, when I read these, I read duh, right? Objective number 1, develop land in accordance with the future land use plan. I mean, that seems self-explanatory, but it's basically saying, staff, don't be coming up with your own agendas, your own ideas to make this town crazy, right? Or something like that. It's to follow the plan. This is a directive to your staff. And this is when Tina, wonderful Tina here, is our planning technician, when they come and they want to get on my schedule, I said, Tina, help me out, help me coordinate some of that. Have those conversations. Is it consistent with the plan, just to get some information? Doing a wonderful job, by the way, Tina. Great addition to this team. Objective number 4, ensure that all development is compatible with existing neighborhoods through density and gradings. Now, someone found that funny, right? With this proposal is consistent and accomplishes objective 1 and 4. In our world, when we talk about compatible uses, residential to residential, it's compatible. It's compatible with existing neighborhoods and gradings. I'll talk a little bit about what's out there today, what could be out there, and I'll try to phrase it in a way that makes sense to me. I'm a simple guy, but in staff's understanding, this is compatible with existing neighborhoods because the land uses are compatible, and it's compatible with the future land use plan. So again, the proposal accomplishes both the objectives of Chapter 4, which is our land use goals, okay? Moving forward to transportation goals of your plan. What's the plan for transportation, right? How does this work? The objective is to require developers to dedicate right-of-way and construct basically the streets in accordance with the master thoroughfare plan. Part of this comprehensive plan is a master thoroughfare plan that was updated. And down this section, it's to require right-of-way of developers. The state has put some things in place to where the city can no longer require things. It's not your city's fault, that's the state, right? On if we have not put it on that transportation plan, that thoroughfare plan, we can't require it. If we haven't funded it in some sense, we can't require it. So that's not something that staff fails to do or anything. It's the state saying, hey, you can't just take up stuff that's not yours. We're talking about someone that owns a piece of property. And in this case, and with this developer, this development, they're saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and carve out this section so you can put a road in, and we're going to give it to you. It's not going to cost you, the taxpayer, anything, right? If it was my property, and I'm not giving you any ideas, but you know, we've heard some landowners here. You're going to take part of my property, you're going to pay for that, right? In this case, and that happens. That happens sometimes. This case, they're offering right-of-way dedication within the land, right? Outside on New Hope Road, we have right-of-way. The right-of-way isn't the street. The right-of-way isn't the street. It's the area that's outside it. Okay, so that street, if it's got enough right-of-way that's already dedicated to the city, it can be widened to accommodate turn lanes if needed. Well, we can. It's dedicated, right? It's dedicated to. We're not building a new Fort Worth. We can discuss that a little bit more, but I'll tell you, Fort Worth we have a good partnership with Fort Worth, and I'm happy to talk more about that offline about that. But all I'm saying, I'm just trying to answer the question about right-of-way in that sense. But to require the right-of-way is an objective. This one, again, accomplishes that goal. Objective number 6 is to evaluate your floodplains for the construction of multi-purpose trails. So we don't have any trails in town. Well, let me rephrase that. We do have trails in town over by Village Creek that were constructed and made by visitors that cycle through that area, okay? It's not exactly a trail you want to take your kids down for a stroll in the park, at least not yet, right? This right here is going to be the first development that has an actual hike and bike trail. We've got other residential parts in town that've got paved areas, but this one would be the first in town that would have a multi-purpose trail. So that's one of the things we've been talking, when we were talking with their team about. Let's talk about housing. That's also a goal, right? What's the plan for housing in town? Kennedale, this is the main goal. Kennedale will have a variety of housing types available to all incomes. All housing will be safe and decent for residents. I'm happy to discuss that afterward, but this is.
Please leave those comments to afterwards. Sorry about that.
You paint a pipe dream that the
Sir.
city can't even afford. And the city knows you can't afford it, so why we keep going down
Okay.
the same trail every time somebody wants to buy this property?
We need to address that after this meeting.
But you guys are the decision makers over something that doesn't make sense.
Respectfully.
I understand how you feel, and I understand your concerns. We need to address that after the meeting.
I'm simply showing what the goal is of your adopted plan, okay? I'm a hopeful person. Yeah, I'm a hopeful person, so if I could inspire somebody, I'm happy to do so. But the housing goal here in Kennedale is to provide a variety of housing available to all incomes. All housing, again, will be safe and decent for residents. So how do we meet that goal for housing in town? How do we meet that goal? Well, objective number one is promote the development of housing types, right? Single-family attached townhomes, apartments should be located where appropriate and designed well, right? But that's part of our objective, and this development accomplishes that objective. I want to show this part as well. Objective number two is to maintain and improve the existing housing stock. How does this development meet that objective? Well, one of the strategies to meet objective number two is to expand programs to maintain existing housing stock, such as those offered by Habitat for Humanity and other organizations and agencies. So they're mentioned by name in your plan. And why is that? Because, well, they're one of the nation's leaders in accomplishing exactly this. In fact, they can probably speak to more about this, but they have programming that is aimed, they don't just go into a development area to build a home. They do reach out to existing seniors, existing homes to maintain and improve that community. Again, when we talked about that, well, yeah, I see that it meets objective number two. Is it consistent? Again, that's the decision for you all. I'm just presenting the facts, right? Or what's presented. Objective number three, develop greater opportunities for senior housing and age-restricted housing. So we have a senior development just north of it, right, that they rent. This does kind of probably hits close to home for a lot of folks that have seniors that want to age in place. And what that means is stay in the community that they grew up in. Is there housing available? Well, they have programming that's directed towards senior housing. You know, a portion of what they market is towards, seniors for their projects, okay? Chapter 8, Parks and Recreation and Open Space. So objective number two is to protect the floodplain, property preservation, water, environmental quality, and the inclusion of a trail system. So we heard about a hike and bike trail. So we know we meet objective number two. You can check that off the list, okay, when we're having these discussions. Objective number three is influence new development by providing public spaces in addition to private amenity centers. We heard the concept plan that they want to do is, I like the drag strip idea, with the concrete where the kids can ride their bikes and race. Community development is happy to provide the popsicle sticks in the bikes, right? Just remember that as a kid. Gazebos, picnic centers, things of that nature. Are you providing that? Yeah, that's what they're proposing. Objective number 5 is increase the number and quality of our organized sports fields. So their concept plan includes that, like we heard tonight, soccer fields, maybe a football field. We don't have any of those in town. We've got ball fields that are currently going to be rehabbed, hopefully soon. But right now, the partnership with YMCA that the city has, they've got to go and stripe a flat area in Sonora Park as needed, but they were trying to establish some sort of outdoor recreation programming. If we had some sports fields out here in those areas, the floodplain areas that you can't put a house on, period, well, yeah, it meets the objective 5 of the project, okay? Moving forward, let's talk about rooftops and roads. So I know that's a conversation in town. So I pulled these numbers from the last couple of fiscal years of your adopted budget. So this is Fund 17, street maintenance. Now these funds have that number at the budget is pretty high. But how much of it is actually directed towards the street maintenance versus salary, engineering design, office supplies, things of that nature that come out of that fund? And the last couple of fiscal years, you'll see that's what they've budgeted for street repair. Folks, I'll tell you, this is potholing, right? This is got a pothole, got to fill it. What are you going to fill it with, right? You got the funds to do that, and that's what's been budgeted. But I'll tell you what's happened. You see the jump between 22 and 25. Well, the reason why those numbers are now higher is that your housing projects in town have closed out. So now I would attribute that to your Magnolia Hills subdivision. 100 homes come in, provide extra funds, extra dollars into that fund. So now annually, the city can budget for road maintenance. Where it budgets, where they place that, again, that's a conversation for city council. But even this current year, $194,000, maybe resurfacing an asphalt road. I don't think you're rebuilding a concrete road. They'll be doing panels in town, but again, this is what your taxpayers are contributing, your existing group of taxpayers, towards street maintenance. Now, I had an email from a lady that said she feels that the south end of town's been neglected. You know, Hudson Village Creek and those areas, there's potholes. We heard about potholes on New Hope. I can't disagree with that. Unfortunately, I mean, the numbers are what they are. We do have partnerships with Tarrant County, right, and COG and things like that to secure additional funding in town. In fact, this isn't a knock at your city per se. The Public Works has done a great job in the last couple of years on repaving a lot of streets here in the Old Town area, some other areas in town, but that's a resurfacing. It's not a complete road reconstruction, right? So, with that, I want to get into what your street impact fee is. Now, in Kennedale, you do have a street impact fee, meaning all new development gets assessed a fee to go towards street impact fee. This is for residential, right? So just over $2,000 that gets added to the building permit when those houses are built goes towards street repair. For commercial, it's a lot higher. Obviously, they use the streets a lot more. They'll tear it up because of trucks and things like that. But right now, this is the street impact fee for that. So if you multiply that number towards, anywhere between 230, 250, you end up with about $500,000 that goes into that fund that's paid by the new folks that are moving into town and not by the existing taxpayer, right? So that's how you shift the cost of development off of the current taxpayer onto the new taxpayer. Sorry about that. But that's how development works, right? It's the new folks in town, they're gonna make us repave that road, and it's gonna require things, they ought to pay for it, right? Not the folks that live in town. That's how that number typically works out, right? So, let's talk about whether that number goes down. Right? You got maybe 30 acres and you want to do 1 acre lots, you got 30 houses, right? So just take that number, multiply it by 30, right? That's what goes into the coffers for street maintenance, right? So the lower the number, the lower the ability you're able to actually perform street maintenance in town. We heard last year, presented that last year we had about 5 houses that were built they were permitted that year. And at 2,000 a pop, it's, well, I don't want to do math on the spot, but you can get what I'm saying, right? That's probably not enough to do a resurfacing of a street, right? So when you're talking about a housing division, a housing division like Magnolia Hills, like other places in town, Brookstone and some of these other, Beacon Hill, when those went in, the money that they paid towards the streets, you know, that went into the coffer. So if you don't have development coming in, again, and you need to rebuild a road or repave a road, it's your existing tax folks that have to pay for it. If you want larger lots, then right now that number's going to go down. So again, I'm just presenting the numbers on there. So, but sometimes rooftops do equal roads, right? Because we see that the rooftops that do come in, they pay into your budget. Okay. But we do got good news. So here this month, City Council, they approved the reconstruction, not repaving, but the reconstruction, New Hope Road, Hudson Village Creek Road, Eden Road, Sweeney Hyatt. These are discussions that have been going on for some time. They were able to actually obtain some funding with Tarrant County to help with that, but it's not something they could probably do without that. And so that's going to happen. And then the construction is supposed to start, from what I hear, this summer. And they'll start on one side of town, and it's one crew. They'll finish that road, and then they'll move on to the next one and to the next one. I want to say that this development, should it get approved, you're not going to see any dirt moving for about 3 years out, because it's still got to go through engineering review, permitting. By then, these roads will be done. You'll have brand new roads, right? And we'll have to do some coordination on, you know, where those turn lanes will go. That'll happen, right? But the other item is Little School Road extension. That's already been, the city's already paying for engineering design and, engineering and design. It's already being engineered and designed. And what that is Little School Road, a bridge going over the railroad tracks to tie into New Hope Road. It's not gonna happen today, but by the time this pops off, we're gonna be a lot further along. And if you heard, this development project, they're looking 10 years out. So I used to live in north Fort Worth, right? Saginaw, it's got trains. They got a bridge over that road. When I lived there, they didn't have a bridge. And my daughter's daycare was on the other side of the tracks. And in Saginaw, they make a big loop. So you catch it on one, you're not making it to the other track if you're not, going the speed limit before the train will catch you on the other side. Folks here on New Hope Road, they are stuck. I mean, I hear about it all the time. But your city staff, and I will say in particular your city manager, has fought to get that project approved, right? Because they need it. We need to get emergency personnel. But guess what? We heard tonight that there has been discussion about maybe a fire station or something like that. Guys, that doesn't happen unless this road takes place, right? Other development on that side of town, right, takes place. So this is actually, it's good news, right? So I want to talk a little bit about this proposal, because part of your comp plan has economic development components to it. I just want to talk in general about economic development. So in Kennedale, this is the average per capita income that I just pulled last 12 months, okay? Talked to a couple business owners, and I said, hey, I don't mean to pry, but what do you pay your folks, like on average? And they said about 40, 45. That's a good solid wage. I mean, this is workforce numbers, right? It wasn't long ago, that's what I was making. I was a single parent, or excuse me, not single parent. Ooh, my wife would be unhappy about that. Sometimes I feel like it, right? But I was the only breadwinner in town, or in the household, right? And so my wife was stay at home, homeschooling the kids. It was hard. It was hard. And during that season where I was making that, I was going to school. Decided to go back to school. Couldn't advance any further on my good looks and my physique, I'll say, right? Had to go back to school, right? That was a tough decision, a great decision, I think. But I was in class all day and at night after I get off, so I didn't get to see my family. So there's families out there, myself included, that this sustained our family. This sustained our family, and this is what the average person in Kennedale makes. Now, you make more than that, praise God, man, you know, that's great, but that's average. There's people that do make less than that. But if the employers that I'm talking to in town say that's what they pay their employees, I don't call that low income, okay? I call that's a fair wage. It's hard work, right? So I don't think we have any low-paying employees in town, pay a fair wage, but on income, on per capita, that's what Kennedale's numbers are. I find that to be a very strong number. What that tells you on the economic side of things, there's all these economic people out there, economic development people, got more degrees on a thermometer, real smart people, right? They say, hey, when we see those numbers, that's good because that'll support housing, that supports good workforce housing. And what I'm saying is that this development is exactly that because the numbers support it. Again, these aren't my numbers. So this is the average travel distance, excuse me, this is a typo. This is the average time people travel to come from Kennedale, right? People that live in Kennedale, this is how much time on average they spend going to work, right? Leaving town, going to work in another community, right? They don't live in that community, they live in this community. I'll tell you, you got staff members that travel longer than that to come work here. And I'm one of them. I'll tell you, I don't come to Kennedale for a paycheck. We're not, folks in Kennedale that work here at the city are not driven by a paycheck. They are driven by purpose. I'm not painting a pipe dream. It's on your website. When you nominate an employee for Employee of the Month, you have to tell us, and we have to tell each other, how that employee met the principles of our purpose initiative, okay? So out here in town, folks want to know where people want to live. They work for the city. You know, that's, I guess I can thank a couple people for that. But it's not something that you expect to hear as a staff member in town. So, but if you got folks that want to come to Kennedale to work, right? How many folks out there want to come and live to Kennedale, right? Do your grandkids, your children have to, wouldn't it be nice if they didn't have to go move somewhere else that was more affordable, right? That they could find a place in town off of their salary to move into. When you say you don't want affordable housing, right? You sometimes you're saying that you don't want your kids and grandkids to live next to you. Because I'll tell you, my generation, I'll be, well, I'm in my 30s for another month, so, you know, but my generation and the next generation, the purchasing power isn't the same as it was in previous generations, guys. It's just not. And so the market will determine what you can afford, and if you can't afford here, then I'm moving further out, right? And I have to move where it's affordable. And the average home price in Kennedale, well, I just moved. Did I look in Kennedale? Absolutely. I even walked some houses. Couldn't afford it, man. Could have, you know. But it is what it is, right? Happy to still travel that time, right? It's time away from your family. We're talking about Kennedale people leaving town, going in, coming back. If you have to drive that far, no bueno. That's Spanish for not good. Top 3 barriers to workforce development. Okay. You have employers here in town. We want to look at, well, I asked them, hey, what are you struggling with? You know, and statistically, here in Texas, these are the top 3 barriers for workforce development. Childcare, right? Childcare is a big deal. Transportation, right? If you could live in town, work in town, that fixes that issue. And number 3 is access to affordable housing, right? That is a barrier, and it's hindering economic development. I'll say this too, I'll end on this slide. This is your city logo. I saw it when I got here. It's very inviting, right? It's catchy, simple, right? You're here, your home. And it's very welcoming. Folks that I've got to work with since I've been here, man, they're just good salt of the earth people. And there's been times where folks come into my office and we're just on the other side of the fence from each other, you know, on things. I'm like, hey man, this is what the building code says. You know, I don't have, you know, it is what it is. But folks here in town have been really great. Well, here's what you don't see. Is you don't see an asterisk, right? You don't see an asterisk. You don't see conditions. You don't see stipulations. And fortunately, reading some of the commentary in town seemed to make me think that that's the case. Now, I like pie. Anybody like pie? We all want to get a piece of that apple pie, right? American pie. My slice of pie, when you come to my house, it's good size, it's a healthy portion, right? But there's been a lot of folks that have come through and say, hey, hey, you want some pie? So yeah, but just a sliver, man. I'm budgeting, right? You got pie, I got pie. Okay, that's all right. We both got pie. Everything's gonna be all right. Why am I talking about pie? Well, just because your pie is smaller than my pie doesn't mean you're any different. You know, what if I said, hey man, you want to sit at the cool table or sit here, you got to have a certain slice of pie, right? And that kind of pie is not enough pie. It sounds kind of silly because we're talking about pie. Where, I mean, some of you probably having a PTSD from lunch cafeteria in high school, right? But that's the same conversation that happens all the time in cities when it comes to housing. And so again, when we review the plans in town, is it consistent with the plans? It is. We've looked through it and throughout. We still have some more work to do. There's still more engineering design that's got to be done. Obviously, that'll happen, part of our processes. But I do want to say that, you know, affordable housing, I grew up in a single-parent home, you know, me and my brother. And I'll say it, we used to live in a shed. So before the shed, we lived in a camper side of my grandparents' house. Nowadays, the fancy term is accessory dwelling unit, right? But that's where we lived, and then we upgraded. My grandfather built us a box at the backyard, and the city come by, say, hey man, you can't live back there. Doesn't meet minimum code. And then they hooked us up. The police officer, I remember it. My mama didn't want to open up the door. He said, well, can you open up the window? And she had foil on the window. She said, you know how long it took me to put that foil on there? I ain't doing that. Well, she finally opened up, and the police officer got us in contact with the group in town for affordable housing. And that was our first home. And I remember that home. And it brought stability. My mom worked for the phone company, Pacific Bell, making $2 an hour in the bilingual section. And she raised me and my brother in that home. And then we upgraded to a manufactured home. And it wasn't until, man, I was almost a senior in high school that we actually get into a traditional stick frame home, you know. And but it was home. And I was so thankful for that community to have had a program or access to affordable housing because it provided stability for me. And today I serve as your development director, a product of affordable housing. And I don't think I would be here today had it not been for that access. And so I'll end with this, is that, you know, I would hope the conversation in town, those that I'll say monitor, administer certain places online would consider that folks like myself, when we read conversations about this and that, the way I may hear it, I was one of those people, I guess, and I'm not trying to upset anybody, but it makes me think that I may be good enough to work here, but I don't think my family would have been good enough to live here. That is not the sentiment of this community, I know, because the folks that I've met and worked with here in town. It's only a few, a very loud few. Okay, I got some friends. But that you don't see, and there is no asterisk in Kennedale, and I'll leave it at that. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
My main concern, and I'm touched by your story and, Cassandra and Habitat for Humanity, and I can relate, as far as coming from very, very humble, beginnings. But the main concern, you stated that it'll be 10 years out before they actually start to build, so the roads,
No.
concern is the safety.
Sure.
I hear that from several, and I actually wrote it down, and that would be something for me as well. Because when you're talking about people tired coming home, that I've gone down that road or whatever like that, and it's kind of, so yes, I would be most concerned with when will that construction on the road and the right-of-way be completed? Will that master thoroughfare be completed before they begin to build?
They anticipate starting construction about 2027, 2028 before they start moving any major dirt. With the 10-year number is that this is where they're outlooking on when the subdivision will be completed. So you're talking about a span over 10 years, incremental change out there. So Magnolia Hills, that was built in, it was approved in 19 or 20. I got here in 22 and I only had 6 houses left. So that, it went up
I
quick.
was house number 4.
Oh, there you go. Well,
I lived through the construction.
yeah, so here, that's where the phases come in and are important, but the reconstruction, not repaving, reconstruction of the roads will be done, we anticipate long before they start going. Now, we have another project again that there's probably gonna be, they wanna probably bring in the sewer down New Hope Road, a different project across the street. And so we'll have to do some coordination with that road construction as well, but we think that that would be a benefit to folks on that side of town to have additional city services out there.
And one other question, fire station, will there be potential for them to have a fire station?
Someone mentioned that tonight. I haven't been a part of any conversations about citing a fire station officially. I've actually talked to the fire chief and the previous fire chief as well. We've looked in those areas, so we have had preliminary discussions, but I don't think the city has any plans to buy some property or anything out there just yet. It probably is not a bad area to look at for a fire station, but the city doesn't have any plans just yet. I mentioned it because someone else mentioned it tonight.
Those are my main concerns.
I'm going to echo a question, and then I've got some questions actually for the developer. The easements they're talking about, I understand an individual back there got pretty passionate about this. What kind of partnership would we look at, or it would be required with the city of Fort Worth to broaden those areas enough to utilize those easements?
Just a phone call. We work with them on our water and the parts of town that take sewer from them. We're actively, I talk to Fort Worth all the time. I wasn't aware that New Hope Road is a Fort Worth road. I've looked at plats in that area, and what I'm going to do is I'll go double check that. The plat itself in those other areas, so there's a lot of property off New Hope Road that is not platted. Meaning, I've talked to some of the residents, is their property line, just like the EDC property that we talked about, extends halfway into New Hope Road. Well, that's their half of the road, right? And until they plat the property, they won't dedicate that to the city. So if that part of the road, I imagine we're gonna do the whole road, but does the city have to? I don't know. We'll have to go through that. But looking at the plats that have been approved in that area, it'll show, it'll just say right-of-way dedication, and then what it does is it lists an instrument number that's filed with the county. Now, I haven't pulled that instrument number, but the staff will go back and start looking at that. This is first I've heard of it, but it's not gonna affect obviously we're gonna rebuild the road, right? And I'm sure Fort Worth would be happy for that, but if there's a way to get Fort Worth to pay for it, I'm gonna start knocking on some doors. That's for sure. That means that's another road in town that we can do in that area. So thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah,
I've
because
become a
we can
good
cost
bill
share, it's
collector
even
here in
better.
town.
And with that being said as well, okay, so we're going to redo these roads, and then we're going to start construction. So at what point do we look at a percentage of the road degrading during that 10-year period to where it's going to have to be resurfaced again or reconstructed again? I mean, because that seems like kind of what I'm looking to is say, this is a great opportunity for the city, but we got to get there from here.
Yeah, again, it's an asphalt road, right? So if you put in a concrete road, then that's going to have a longer lifespan. An asphalt road doesn't have long of a lifespan. So there may be some milling that have to be done, but with additional housing out there to support the funding for that, it would be a matter of council to a budget for that. I'm thinking it's probably likely more of a possibility to get it done if you have some housing out there to support that. Now, if they put in a concrete road, that'd be better. A lot of roads, neighborhoods, I worked in Hearst for a while. They'd go and tear out the road, put a concrete road, and then they put asphalt on top of that so that they don't have any failures below that causes the potholes. And they would do milling as council budgeted, right? So instead of, at first it was a full reconstruction. It was a nightmare, we get that. But after that, now they just got to go back and mill, and that could be done like that. So just depends on how they're going to reconstruct it. I believe the plans are to just rebuild it and put it in another asphalt road. What's happened here in Town Center have just been remilling and overlays, so they haven't actually gone down to grade. I anticipate that's what's going to happen there on New Hope Road. But should be done as fast as that crew can work, because they're going to go nonstop after that. That's what was Public Works just reported to City Council this month.
Okay, so the manpower has actually been slotted as well, and there's actually a Gantt chart, if you will, of how this is going to slide across and allow for this increment to be completed prior to something else starting, so we can actually multiply the funding and move forward to actually come back and resurface, et cetera. It just seems like it's a lot of small loops going forward. Second one, and then, I'm gonna actually turn this back over towards the developer folks. I'm gonna ask these questions. They were brought up by our citizens, and I definitely want to make sure they are heard. One being insurance. Because of the way that the lay of our land and our access is set up to go across the railroad track, for an example, some of these people, they are correct. They're being denied insurance. How is that going to affect as far as you being able to sell these homes if, in fact, there's no insurance?
Sure, we'll check with our insurance carrier and make sure that they'll extend insurance.
Okay, so what about the right for those folks to choose their own carriers? I don't want to monopolize anything out there either.
No, I mean, we don't point a gun at their head and say, you have to take this.
Okay. Well, again, the ability to sell the homes when somebody does their due diligence and says, hey, I can't insure this house. So it stops flat right there. So that's one of my concerns right there. If this housing development goes through and there's no real access to it, the insurance companies are going to either send their rates through the roof for these folks, or they're going to deny them. So I'm concerned about the folks that buy those homes. They're going to afford a setback when it comes to that, just by virtue.
Sure, we'll check that.
Okay.
We'll get with our insurance carrier tomorrow and see what they have to say.
All right. Another question I know I heard elsewhere. If a family was to purchase a home out there, we were talking about the deed restrictions. Now, caveat on this, if somebody was to pass away and those homes are inherited by someone that may not necessarily meet the requirements, what is the legal ramifications that they would have to pass through to either obviously they'd have to qualify, but let's say they don't. So how does that work as far as habitat? That's just kind of an internal question I have.
Sure, no, that's a good one. If they were over income, for example, then they would have to get their own financing. If we finance the home, right? So we're at 80% and under on the financing. They inherit the home, then they have to qualify for our financing, or they have to refinance on their own.
Okay, so.
And the families,
going down that path.
per the deed restriction, would have to be 80% median income and under, whoever inherited the home.
Okay, so again, question on that. Let's say somebody has a multiple misdemeanor family member. They don't meet the criteria for that, or a felony, or anything that does with the background check. How does that work out for that family if they've inherited it, but now they can't even possess it, or they can't even take over the inheritance? I'm just curious about that.
It would force a sale if they weren't able to own the home per the deed restrictions.
Okay, because I'm trying to make sure, and I understand completely with some of the folks out here, they don't want a back door to have somebody come in that may be undesirable into this type of situation. I mean, we can't control it in our neighborhoods as it is. And I know.
Well, we have more controls than any other home builder.
Understood.
Others don't check anything about anything, so we're the only one that has any controls whatsoever.
My point on a lot of this, though, is there's a lot of confidence loss just with the stigma. So I'm trying to make sure that the community has a good warm fuzzy, if you will, about something like this coming in. And that kind of, I go back to my next thing. I know that there's, and again, you said, there's, if you will, different franchises, if you will, on the Habitat Humanity. I worked and volunteered for quite a few of them out in Tucson when I was
cool. Thank you.
Military out there. Great program. Again, nothing against it. What certain controls are out there to kind of keep these promises, especially when we start aging out, where you do leave? I understand you would be the banking, but we just kind of mentioned there's an example that they would have to get their own financing. So at that point, there's no more interest in the actual monetary side of it for Habitat Humanity. So what would be the motivation for to make sure that these promises that are put forth to this community are kept when it comes to?
Well, the deed restrictions stay with the property, right? And so I die, I want to sell my house. I say I want to give it to my oldest daughter. She doesn't qualify for whatever reason, then I have to sell it, or my heirs have to sell it. Goes up up for sale on the MLS. Somebody says they want to buy the house. That information goes to the title company, do the title work. In the title work, due diligence, as they're pulling title, they see the deed restrictions, and that's the red flag. Then they have to deal with the deed restrictions, and that's what Christine was mentioning when, like, the affordability comes back to us, and then it has a schedule of the price within the deed, so they can't be arguing on how to calculate that.
Okay. The other question is going to be, I lost my thought there.
Well, it's a complicated
It's been a long night, folks, a long day. My other concern is going to be if you have somebody that comes off there and I'm going to give you an opportunity, I guess, to say, I want you to kind of take this and run, the comment I've got. I kind of already know the answer, just in my line of work. If you have a built-in incremental value of 3%, okay, so if the economy, especially in housing, was to recede.
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
That particular 3% it's bulletproof, basically. Is that correct? Based on recession. So if the housing itself recedes, so the values of the homes dump, your houses are actually increases. Are they going to hold a value onto that, or is it still looking at comparable values around the neighborhood?
I'm not sure if I'm following you, because let's say somebody pays $200,000 for a house and then 3% increase, so it can't sell for more than $206,000 in year 12 months later, the next year, right? That's the max.
So we're maxing out on
in a recession. Let's say we go through 1987 again, or the housing bubble burst in 08, 09, and everything decreases. The ceiling doesn't impact the
Right.
bottom end. And I would say this, that if something didn't make sense in the deed restrictions, Habitat for Humanity owns the deed restriction. As the owner of the deed restriction, Habitat for Humanity can change that. If it was not serving the purpose for the mission of Habitat, like if, in other words, what do I mean by that? And it's like, oh my God, they're going to change it and screw everybody. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if it put the owner in a box that they couldn't win, then Habitat could do something about the deed restriction. We want to keep it affordable as long as possible, but you also have to acknowledge what you don't know is going to happen tomorrow.
So you walked right into what my whole point of that was, is the deed restriction is enforceable, but it can always be changed by.
Only by Habitat.
Habitat.
Right.
So
And we would
if it
change it
benefits that
inconsistent with our
situation.
mission of building strong families and neighborhoods and our Christian ministry.
Okay, but my point is, it's not set in stone. It has a but depends, if you will, if it.
Well, it's Habitat, any deed restrictions owned, I mean, Steve, am I right, is owned by the person that creates the deed restriction.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to find, I mean, where's the, oh no, oh crap moment in that, in your mind?
That circles back to the, okay, we're keeping the promises.
Yeah.
So the promise is.
But I'm trying to construct the negative, and I'm not coming up with a scenario.
Oh, I mean, I can come up with, there was plenty of scenarios, and that's why I'm trying to make sure that those scenarios are spoken to before we walk this forward. Because, yeah, there's a lot of different moving pieces here. I can definitely understand the concerns. The city, is the city ready for something like this? Okay. Well, the infrastructure, we talked about that. That road, honestly, I've driven down it. It's scary. Is that going to be something addressed? We had more people to understand it's being phased through. So I would definitely want to speak to all these different scenarios. But I look at that's the one that really kind of stuck in my mind is on a deed restriction. You're right, it's owned by Habitat. If Habitat says, this family is going to suffer if I don't relax this deed restriction. Now, how does that go about if anyone else in that neighborhood found out, hey, their deed restrictions?
I don't see the scenario where that happens.
I see it all the time, sir. I work in contracts. That's what I do all day long. So I mean, it's
well, no. I'm
protest.
Because it's the top end. I mean, they're not going to be in debt on their house because we have the note, right?
Right.
So they're not going to be in debt over the value to sell, which inherently means they can't be underwater on the sale.
What do you think about that statement? I mean, because it.
You can relax deed restrictions.
Yes.
He's not talking about money. He's talking about anything. So all of a sudden you have all these background checks, and you, as the deed holder, could then all of a sudden retract those. That's what he's asking. And sit on a property.
I mean, yeah, technically, the answer would be yes, correct?
And what's the question?
If a deed restriction could be relaxed based on a scenario that is being said that would be enforced. And that's what I was saying, keeping promises on these things. You'd mentioned deed restrictions are in play, therefore the red flags will pop up when you try to sell. If those deed restrictions are relaxed for whatever reason, at some point, are they going to be reinforced on the next family? Are they going to remain relaxed? Or are they?
It would create a nightmare in the neighborhood if you did it for A and B and not C or D.
That is exactly what I'm talking about.
That would be a nightmare.
Okay, and that's what I'm talking about.
It would not be in the best interest of any institution to do that.
Yeah, but I see it all day long. I see it happen all the time. And that's where we run into protests. We run into.
Sure.
We're down over the GEO having discussions through contractual law and requirements and fair operations. So it's an organizational conflict of interest. When I see something like that, I say, okay, well, they're in control of it. They're telling us that the city is not going to necessarily, we're going to give these promises to them for the next 80 years, but then we're turning around saying, but we own the keys and the, of course, the availability to retract any of those statements that are in there. I just wanted to make sure that's something that there is a plan in place for when you was to do something like that. It's across the board. Is that my understanding then? Okay, so.
Yes.
Can you give me a scenario when something like that would happen?
That we would eliminate, hadn't happened. I just was acknowledging the obvious that it's hard to predict what happens long-term. I don't anticipate that happening. It hadn't happened yet. We haven't had them in place that long. We've had them in place since 2020, 2021, I can't remember, when the prices started getting. Excuse me? No, sir. It's the inflation.
No, absolutely.
That's driving our concern. Our real estate price is up 700% since 2017 or 2018.
Well, yeah, the supply shock did that. So it ran through the whole, the whole economy. So, housing's not.
Affordability's extremely challenged, and this helps address the affordability.
All right, well, I'll kind of leave that one hanging where it is at that post. My last question is the housing mix itself. There's 1, 2, and 3 different levels. Is there a particular mix?
25% for H1, which is the least expensive, 50%, which is for 80% median income and under, 50% for H2, which is the next step up, which is that $200,000-ish home, that's 50%, and then H3, which is the 80% median income to 120% median income, which is that plus or minus 300,000, is 25%. And I said around 200. I think I said 230, not 200 for that H2. So basically 25%, 50, and 25%.
So basically, bell curve we're looking at as far as the income requirement.
Right, mixed income neighborhood.
So you could almost true median the secondary level as being the majority of what you're selling now. Now, let's say the studies come along, we look at, okay, runoff. I know I talked to Steve about some of this. The runoff itself can be dictated based on a study. You may lose some of the outside of it. You may have to transfer it over to the park side of it. You may lose some of the slots, may gain some. So, there's in the middle, not sure what's going on there, not until a study's concerned. If those studies fail to a point where this area becomes kind of non-value to distribute or to develop, after, and again, we're kind of doing this, we're going to vote something through and then to find out afterwards. I know that's kind of common in this world, but what do you see Habitat doing with this area? Let's just say there's a greater amount of it that is not developable, not able to be developed to where it becomes kind of a losing battle as you would economically, or as far as the value of your actual build.
So I think you're saying if we buy it.
If you buy it.
And then all of a sudden, instead of 230 some odd lots, we can only do 200. Now it's not economically feasible.
Correct.
Sell it.
Okay, so we would be leaving it now as zoned as is. And what kind of a partnership would you be looking to? Because now that opens up the city saying, okay, well, now we're stuck with this. And I go back to the whole comment of, yeah, you can turn around and put townhomes on there, or you can put whatever on there. How does the city feel about being protected over stuff like that? Because you're living.
Well, the city controls.
Yes, the city does.
Whether we could put townhomes when that's not our intent, and we couldn't do that on our own thought, or the next person couldn't do it on their own thought.
Well,
the city has to approve it, right?
I would have to say correct. But again, I kind of go back to the keeping the promises and trust. Big thing right now, I know that this community's been kind of jaded, if you will, about some of this stuff. And I'm trying to make sure that when we have these conversations, that they're transparent, their discussions, their concerns are met. That's the whole reason we're here.
Absolutely.
Is to speak on their behalf.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we're covering those requirements and those concerns. But so you're saying that, okay, this doesn't work off, we're going to sell it. So now we have a planned development sitting out there, which, by the way, can also include apartments, like they have over there at we have kind of a mess, if you will. So
only if the city approves apartments.
To a point, yes. My thing is I want to make sure that there is a transparency here, and that's the reason I'm asking the questions. That's why I asked, okay, this didn't work out. Your idea now is to not go ahead and develop part of it, but we're going to go ahead and just jettison and
well,
back to
okay, now there's a continuum. If it made sense to do half of it, then you can look at that. You're going to play out every available scenario to figure out what makes the most sense when the thing turned up to not be as perceived in our work with the city and the work of our civil engineer.
Well, that's all I had.
Those are good questions.
Yeah, thank you for catching the bullets.
Yeah, that's the job. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to have Nathan come up here. I think Nathan was kind of more of a better person to address some of the questions that were just brought up. But so, can you just kind of go over kind of what we're doing here tonight, right? Because we're here for a zoning change for a plan development.
Sure.
And as part of that plan development, one of the stipulations is they have to send a preliminary design, right? So can you kind of explain what tonight's meeting is really about? And so that even though we're switching this over to a plan development, does not necessarily mean that if the scenario plays out, it's not viable, whatever, that there's going to be an apartment complex that goes up there because of the way that it would have to come back to us.
Absolutely. So there will be absolutely no apartment complex that's possible there, right? Unless the city council rezones it or they petition to rezone it and it gets approved through here in city council. So by approving a plan development, just a plan development, no. We have specific language within the plan development that it could only be single-family residential, detached single-family residential, right? Not townhomes. That would be single-family attached. So that is spelled into the ordinance of the plan development. So it can't turn into apartments just because they decided they want to do that, or you get a staff member that says, yeah, go ahead and do that. It can't do that. It violates the ordinance. Okay, now we've had other projects in town that were developed not according to the zoning, right? So we'll acknowledge that, but not on a single family development. That would they clear house immediately, right? That's not possible with the plan development that is presented, that would go to council for approval. They can't just change it to single family. So part of the zoning process is to say, okay, here's what you got, here's what we want to do. They've got to come and make the case before you, make it before city council. My job is to say, hey, this is either consistent with the plan or not, right? Provide you a recommendation. Part of that plan development language is to provide you a concept plan, right? They haven't done the full-blown engineering because that comes afterward, right? If I'm going to go buy a piece of property, I'm not going to spend all $100,000 on engineering if you won't let me build what I'm spending all this money to do, right? So the first thing is, will you allow us to build this, right? That's their ask. So that's how zoning works. Now, you can zone it into another zoning district that you have. So you have R1, 2, 3, 4, right? And those have set standards that are pretty basic. There's no landscaping requirements in them. There's certainly no conditions as far as background checks and all these other things within the traditional zoning. The only way the city can control how it develops is to consider a plan development. It allows the city, not just staff, but your city council, you yourselves, to negotiate the terms of that plan development over and above what the base zoning is. So the base zoning here is your R4 residential zoning. So whatever is allowed in your base zoning. So if it's R4, right now, your R4 doesn't allow for townhomes, it doesn't allow for the duplexes, it's strictly single family. So that's the base zoning. The plan development comes on top of that and says, you know what? We're going to maybe consider other lot sizes, but we want X, Y, Z. We want sports fields, we want parks, we want landscaping, we want 2-car garages, we want design elements, things like that, that the zoning that you have in place doesn't go into any of that, right? So the process is to present a concept plan for you all to consider, and discuss, right? And then go to city council for further consideration, right? So there was public vetting, that's part of the process. Folks that live out in the community, they have a role in that process, just like we've seen tonight, right? It's a beautiful process, right? That's how it's designed, that's how it goes, right? And so I hope I explained kind of how zoning typically works.
Yeah, I got that. And thank you, that was a good question. I got that, but my thing was I was trying to present that through the eyes of the citizen that's not sitting up here.
Sure. I hope I
That's going
answered
to
that
sit
question
there.
for
Yeah,
them.
and you did. And that was my intent is, we've watched all these things happen. That's the lens they have right now. And I wanted to make sure that, that lens was captured and then that fear was mitigated or, eliminated. That's
Yeah,
really
great.
was the intent of that.
Great question. I mean, one of the questions is, has the topographic engineering been done? The name of the engineering firm is Topographic, so that's going to be done. I mean, that's what they do. And again, those are great questions. If there's any other things, I'm happy to try to elaborate more.
Well, we call those wall-to-wall discussions back where it wasn't, custom discussed, but anybody else?
Yeah, I got a couple more for you, Nathan, right? So basically what we're doing tonight, the zoning change is say, hey, this property fits within the descriptions of being a planned development. It's consistent with all of our approved documents that have been approved by city council recently. I know in the past, we've had issues where there was like a 10, 12-year gap between some of these documents and some of the projects that we were approving.
Yeah.
So to have a plan that was recently done, lots of citizen engagement in that, says this area should be residential. So what we're doing here tonight is to say a plan development is consistent with our documents. Along with that plan development is this other document that was created that's a part of the packet that is on the public website and part of the agenda, where it spells out exactly all of the covenants and restrictions of everything that would go in that plan development.
Right.
So by improving that, even if they were to sell the property, whoever bought it next, that is the only thing that they can build on that at that moment in time.
Correct.
Unless they come back to council or go through the whole process again.
Yeah, and this body is a recommending body.
Right.
It's not an approval body. So that would be city council.
Right. And so after tonight, right, tonight is just the zoning change, right? There is still other engineering that needs to be done in order to develop a plat that's going to go within that plan development.
Correct.
And that would be another time in which they're going to come before this body and also before council.
Yeah, and there's actually, following the initial step is a zoning change. There's 3 more steps to that. Preliminary plat, which requires preliminary engineering, things of that nature. Once that gets through, they'll submit to this body a preliminary plat for your action. Following preliminary plat, there's what we call site development, right? That's the full engineering for all the civil engineering. Preliminary, and then we have full engineering, okay? And that's to look at the flood studies and all the other things that are part of that process. They have to obtain a permit, they have to submit their full engineering drawings for the city for review. Following that, okay, then they have to submit for a final plat. That has a review as well. That goes to P&Z, that goes to council, right? So there's various steps that have to take place before they can start moving any dirt. So that's where earlier I said it's probably going to be 2-3 years before like that whole process plays out, before they can even, because you can't file a preliminary plat with the county and create the lot. You can only do that with the final plat. And we're not going to allow that, one, if it hasn't met the zoning that was approved, the plan development, if it hasn't met the city's engineering standards, right? If they haven't mitigated flooding or hazards or anything like that, if they haven't met the intent of that ordinance, then they can't get approval if they haven't met the city standards. So tonight is step 1. And there's 3 more steps that are going to transpire or could transpire in the next couple of years for this.
Okay, and so just to reiterate, the map or the layout, the draft document that is included in the agenda packet for this item is nothing more than a conceptual plan. So all of the detention ponds, the sports fields, and everything that we've talked about, those can be added at a preliminary platting stage, or those will be added at a preliminary platting stage, not necessarily right now with the conceptual rendering of what the property could look like.
They got to finish the topographic, the grading, the engineering design. They got to do all that to make sure their degrees, minutes, seconds, pencil, right? And then part of the site development, the full engineering review is the site plan review. That actually gets submitted as well to P&Z, right, to council, to say, hey, this is past the city's, all the engineering, here's the site plan, because that's like an amendment to the plan development. That gets attached to that, right? And then any changes to that site plan down the road, they have to, guess what? They got to come back and do this whole thing all over again. So that's why we had that process in place. So by the time they get to full engineering, we don't have any major issues where things are changing. What happens at times is maybe the contractor installs a water line that's 6 inches off of where the easement is, so that sometimes they got to fix some typos or move that over a little bit. Happens sometimes, but if they have to make any substantial changes, hey, we're going to put another phase on the other side of the creek. No, that's not part of the site plan, my friend. You're going to have to come back and send notice and do all this other stuff. Again, I imagine they probably won't want to spend another couple hours, on a substantial change. Right, so that's how that process lays out.
So just to clarify, their main concern, I just had, where I live, it was such an issue because the roads were so narrow, and then they did widen it, and it did fix a lot of the issues. But just to clarify, you said that hopefully before they start, 2-3 years later, the roads will be widened or will be fixed for the folks on New Hope Road?
So New Hope Road will be reconstructed. I don't believe there are any plans right now to widen the road, right? But if there needs to be a turn lane, they believe and we believe there's ample space to install that. So off of Colette Sublet, for example, you had just a road that was dilapidated and you had the bar ditches. So when they come and rip all that out, they went and they didn't take anyone else's property. What they did is they put the sidewalks within the right of way. So this is the spaces for the city. Here's the road today on New Hope Road. The rest of this is all wooded, bar ditch, drainage, right? So they have only this space where they can touch, right? Otherwise, it's a lawsuit. It's a lot of phone calls to the city manager. I want to try to limit those as much as possible, right? So they can only work within that right of way. And on New Hope Road, it kind of does this because some property has dedicated right of way, some haven't, right? Now, when we go to reconstruct, they're going to put the road, they're going to reconstruct the road, right? And there's areas where if it needs to be widened, then that's where the coordination, actually we're having that discussion right now. So we're looking at the scheduling of the reconstruction of New Hope Road to coincide with how this engineering is going to come in. So if there needs to be a dedicated turn lane, they have the space to do that. And so a turn lane or a lane really isn't that wide. I mean, your parking standard in town is 9 feet by 18. We're talking about 9 feet. So if they have to, maybe in that area, widen it a little bit to accommodate that, it should be, and they'll have to do probably some bar ditching improvements, right? For drainage, that will happen. But it's the engineering that's going to dictate what they need to do on that side. But we're trying to coordinate that. We're having that discussion right now.
Any further? All right. Well, the last thing I'm going to caveat is the fact that I know there's a lot of pros and cons with this. There's a lot of misunderstandings, yet to understands, and maybe don't want to understand, and that's fine too, because that's what makes us all individuals. There's a lot of things I don't understand. My wife tells me all the time. But with that being said, the principle of this particular commission is to ensure that the comp plan's met, that the city planning is met, that our developmental codes are met, and that also includes state, county statutes and codes as well. So we have to make sure that all those things are in line. That we can say, yes, the staff has said, these are all the things we've looked at, and we can assert that they have been looked at, and we agree that they do meet these requirements, codes, statutes, laws, and pretty much is always defined to the best use of the land for a city and community, not necessarily always the best land use of an individual. And that's P&Z 101, unfortunately. I just wanted to say that, bring that information out. Did you have anything else, sir?
No, sir.
So I got one more question. I know there's been a lot of opposition today, and you've probably received opposition from the mailouts for the 200-foot buffer around the developed property. There's limits that need to be reached. I know for city council to potentially have to have a supermajority for city council to approve something like this. Have those been met?
At this point, no. There hasn't been any official submittals to the city for that, but I anticipate we'll get those, right? So the emails have come in. We got to go put a matrix together because we need to present that to city council. Again, there'll be another public hearing at city council where I anticipate that question will come up.
Actually, I believe it already has. One of our speakers did mention they had brought up a petition that they've already.
I imagine they're probably still getting more signatures on that, so they're happy to submit it for verification for the city.
Okay, can you let them know what their deadline is on that?
They can submit it up to council, so we'll try to provide them as much up-to-date information as we got. But,
Okay. Just want to make sure they hear from the Nathan's mouth. All right, well, I had my say, shot a few bullets over here. He caught them well, that's good. Same with you, Nathan, thank you very much. If there's no other discussion at this time, I think all the requirements in my mind, Oh, you have one now. Okay.
Yes, one last
my bad.
question, Nathan. With the planned development, how is it juxtaposed to the racetrack? Someone mentioned something about the racetrack. Will it be just up next to it, or is there an easement between there, or?
Well, no, this would be redevelopment of the racetrack.
Okay, the whole.
The whole prop, or portions that can be built on. Floodplain areas will remain floodplain, right? And if they're going to do any building in there, they have to do the flood studies, right?
Okay.
But we did hear tonight, there is going to be a racetrack there. So
Okay.
that's what they're proposing.
You know, kind of bouncing back to that just
Or,
real fast.
excuse me, drag strip.
I know EPA had been involved with that area at one point when they did soil samples and whatnot. Is that still going to be an issue with this?
Well, part of there is environmental, phase 1, phase 2. I mean, that's pretty standard, right? So they'll.
And that's what I
they'll
was
have to go
worried
through
about,
all
the
that.
whole, if it doesn't pan out, then what? Now we're stuck with a planned development where they can't develop it, and we'd have to rezone it again. That's.
It would be their decision or council's decision to rezone it, so.
Absolutely. I'm not saying stuck. Let me just say it would be required of us.
Yeah.
To take
It would
that
still
type of
meet the
action.
comp plan.
You and your comp plan.
I had one more.
Y'all's
This isn't
complaint.
to pick on you, but a lot of folks here said that they didn't receive the notice and they were
I'll go back and look at that.
the type or.
No, so what we do is we draw out, we use GIS, right? And we draw out the subject property and we put a buffer in. And the computer, what it does is it extrapolates all the appraisal district data and it provides us a list so that we know who to contact and who to mail. There are instances where properties are just outside that 200-foot limit that don't get the notice, but we do publish it in the paper. So there, and then there's postings here, and then there's a lot of Facebook journalists out there that have got pages that they keep up to tab on things in town. So things do get around, I'll tell you. So. Well, that would be the Star Telegram, where we publish. Yes, ma'am.
That's a fabulous question, sir. Yes, either way, it can be approved, disapproved, or tabled. Depends on, again, we're going to kind of go into our own little internal discussion. Obviously, it's going to be transparent to you folks. Just kind of pros and cons with each other, and that was kind of our next step. But and with that being said, I'll let you start. You always have the best opinion, sir.
I mean, I've kind of basically already said my position, as I spoke to Nathan. or in our conversation with Nathan at the podium, the, the comp plan is what guides the development within the city. Under Nathan and under the city council, we've invited the city to revise that because we did have an old and outdated comp plan, and that was a lot of comments that we were receiving about development going on within the city. And we've done the process. We've asked what the community wants in this area, and it came back saying, once again, that this should be single-family residential. We've developed all of the multiple meetings, developing mission statements and what we want to see from income, housing that's available to all income levels. And so from the available documentation that's out there, it's consistent with those plans that were developed in the community. And that's really my comments.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
I've listened to a lot of information, valuable information, and as a senior citizen, I value being heard. So I've listened to, what you had to say. You've been in your property, well, even if you just move there, you have a right to voice your opinion. I'm all for the rezoning for the planned development. As it stays now, worst case scenario, if it's R1, someone mentioned that they would like to buy it. Without the planned development layer to making sure that it is single family with landscaping, with some of the parks and the other amenities that the developer promised to put in, if it was an R1, then who's to say what could be put there? So when it comes down to it, I'm in favor of moving forward with, and all we're doing is approving the zoning change. All of the other studies and the different layers that have to go into place, come back and we can review that and we'll take it step by step. But yes, I'm in favor of the rezoning only, not saying the whole project. Okay, come back and let's talk again.
And just caveat on that, we're not necessarily approving, we're the recommending official. The approving official is going to be the city council itself, so.
I stand corrected.
You're fine. We all wish we could approve something. Okay, ma'am.
I guess I'm kind of sad because of the race track or whatever it's called. I went there a couple of times, and I moved here to Canada in 2016. And the noise at first would be like, ugh, but it is such a big part of Canada. But then you also have what just got presented today, that it's something good for Canada because of everything that they presented. So I'm not one of change. I don't like change, but if it's for something better, I'm trying to build stuff here in Canada to make it grow. We have different projects going to try to bring stuff to Canada because I like living here, and so I always want the best for Canada, but sometimes we have to sacrifice some things to get something a little bit better, so it's kind of hard, but that's what we're all here for, to discuss, and hopefully we all have the best interest for Canada. Thank you.
Thank you very much to my peers. One of the reasons I have them do that is so we are all on record on a situation that is obviously brought in a lot of folks, both for, against, and just we want you to know that we do have our hearts in the city, and that's why we stand up here. That's why we all have lives. But we sit up here for our $1 a meeting just because there's a requirement to pay us, and most of us donate it right back to put a bush out somewhere. But with that being said, my opinion on this one is, again, I go back to the whole comp plan. It's been presented over time. In fact, I was part of that committee. The comp plan, the citizens that came out, the ones that spoke about it, they all mentioned, yes, they want housing out here. They want more affordable housing. They want to have a growth of a city that is feeling more as I want to call it a bedroom location, but a city that feels like it's their home. It's not just a place to work. It's not just a place to go have entertainment. We want all those things to happen. So it has to be a multiplicity of different avenues. Not all of us like racetracks. Some of us hate bowling. I hate golf. But it is what it is. Now, some of you folks might be saying, hey, I really would love to have a golf up here. I mean, I'm going to say, yeah, it doesn't mean anything to me. So we got to look at each other and say, change is always a constant. It's going to flow in ebbs and valleys. It's just going to, we're not all going to like it. But the thing is hopefully we're all moving in the same direction. The state and the county, the statutes I was talking about is we're not allowed to deny anything based on income basis or any kind of the protected categories that are out there. We have to look at this as a community as a whole, as a family, if you will. We're not all made of the same cloth. We're all different. But the thing is we come together as a community, and that's why the proof is right here. You're sitting in front of here. So I really want to just tell you all, I appreciate you all being here. I know this is a kind of a tough way to feel about things, something in our backyard. I'm not sure how I would feel about having a canine training facility of mine. My dogs were bad enough. But that's why we're all here, to have that voice. Regardless of what our decisions are, the city council will also have a public hearing. I wholly expect you all, and I talk to your friends, bring people out, spread the word that your voices are going to be heard, and especially at that location, because they are the approving facilities. But with that, I just wanted to caveat on that, and at this point, does anybody ready to go ahead and request for a motion to approve the recommendation?
I recommend we recommend approval of PZ case 2503 for rezoning to plan development.
Okay, do I have a second? That's you too.
I second. Well, I understand that, sir. There are people that do want it. The thing is, like I mentioned, this is about the city and the best use for the city. Okay. Well, all in favor for this, recommend the approval to the city council for this PZ03. All in favor? Okay, it's 4-0, ma'am. Please, again, I ask you all to continue to voice your opinions on this. That's fine. Everybody need a 5-minute break? Can we adjourn here for 5 minutes at 8:25?
Madam Secretary, you ready? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Plan and Zoning Commission is now going to reconvene here at 9:35. Can y'all hear me? Okay. We're going to reconvene at 9:35. We're going to go on to the next Plans and Zoning case, 25004. If you have a further discussion, can you please take it to the hallway? Gentlemen? All right. 2504, conduct a public hearing to consider a replat of the property located at 124 West 5th Street, lots 7R1 and 7R2, Block 43, original town of Kennedale being revised. That's a strange way of it. Being revision to a lot 7R, Block 43, original town of Kennedale, Kennedale, Texas, Tarrant County. Staff, we meet again.
I believe this item is a public hearing as well.
Yeah, it's a public hearing and
Okay.
consider
We can
reback.
have
Okay,
that, and then I'm
we can
happy to
open it up.
present afterward.
I figured, okay. Let's go ahead and open this one up for a public hearing at, discussion at 9:36. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, sir. Mr. Daryl Tippy, can you please come forward?
Hello, my name's Gerald Tippy. I've previously been on the EDC and other things here. Right now, I kind of do various different things like cybersecurity for the federal government. But I own multiple properties. Okay, yeah. I own 121 West 5th Street where I reside. I own 129 West 5th Street, which is also across from the property being requested for rezoning. I also own 329 West 5th Street, which is, down the road a little bit, but pay taxes in Kennedale citizen, lived here 11 years, that's that. Okay, just keep in mind on that rezoning that you're doing right now. You're rezoning what you're doing essentially is you're taking two lots. One's very, very narrow, one's very, reasonably wide. They're gonna rezone that to split those in two. Now, the person that's doing that previously had just built a duplex across the street next to the properties that, that we're discussing. Now, just to give you a little bit of history, that person, that owner or landlord, whatever you wish to call it, was approached multiple times because they would park behind like our driveways, our tenant's driveway in 129. We'd ask them to move, we'd ask them not to block the road, other things like that. They basically blew you off, and then at some point in time, they actually they'd have like this whole area, half a block where they could park, or they could park in their own driveway or whatever, but they'd still park right behind our driveway. Now, that was the actual people that are building this thing. Now, their tenants really weren't much better. So, this whole thing was very poorly managed is the point I'm getting at. Also, the road that you just spent good money on replacing 5th Street or whatever else, she's been bringing in large trucks that are overfilled. And if you were to go out and look at that new road that you put in, it's damaged severely. So, everything I'm telling you is that. Other things, I mentioned poorly managing. I was also told that she wants to put in 2 single-family houses there when she replots this. I've also heard rumors that she's going to put in 2 duplexes. My concern is she puts in 2 duplexes, the parking's going to be totally out of control and not planned. There's concerns, there's several other people here with me. I've talked to everybody in the neighborhood. We're worried about the property values of our property. Now, one of the things I would mention, if it's possible, if you rezone that property, can you, rezone that property and just make it R1? If she just wants to put in 2 single-family homes, you don't really need R2. So if she wants to do that, then, that would solve all the problems, that we wouldn't have double duplexes there, and everyone would be happy. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it. I'll surrender the rest of my time.
Thank you, sir. Good to always hear, I was in electronic warfare. I was electronic warfare military.
I'm a retired Army colonel, 4 engineers.
There you go, sir. I don't know how I feel about you now. Next speaker, please.
Mr. James Bell.
That was an Army dig, sir. I'm Air Force.
I'm James Bell. I live at 201 West Fifth Street. We've been here since my wife's family owned that house. She's raised here, and she's 75 years old, same as I am. Our problem is they're talking about the rezoning of that property there. Even though we don't live exactly where Darrell lives, we do live on that corner. And with that duplex that's there, when they start parking a lot of people out there on the weekends, and I mean, it doesn't, not a lot, 3 or 4 cars, they're parked in the street. And we have a difficult time getting up and down the street. And I'd just like to say, if that was single family, if what they're going to do is build single family housing there, 2 houses, I don't have an issue with that. But 2 more of those duplexes, it's going to be too much for us. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
No more speakers, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Madam Secretary. Staff, come on up.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity again to come back and talk with you. So this is not a rezone, this is a replat. We're redrawing some property lines. It was one large lot. The new owner, previously there was a home there that was kind of falling into squalor. I think it was at Habitat, but they sold it to this new buyer, and their plan is to split it in 2. Right, to put some residential units there, residential structure. The current zoning, though, is Old Town 1. That's not changing. So whatever is permitted in Old Town 1, that's all that they can do. Now, single family is one of those uses. Duplexes is also one of those uses. Can't put a triplex, can't put a quadplex or anything like that. Can't put multifamily. So that's what the replat entails. It's gone through city review. It meets the requirements of the zoning district. So just as a reminder, when a replat or a plat meets the city's zoning district, then you have to approve it because it's a requirement by state law. Now let me rephrase it. It can't be denied if it meets the zoning requirement, right? And so additionally, these new lots again will provide a uniform look on that block for development there. I'm happy to hear about I'm not happy to hear that you have some parking challenges there. I also oversee code compliance, and I can address that along with the police department. It sounds like they've helped as well, but if you have any ongoing issues, please communicate with my office and we can get that corrected. It is a public road, but there are limits on how long someone can park on a public road now in Kennedale. Before, there wasn't any limits other than what's on the transportation code. The transportation code is part of the penal code, but now you have a city ordinance that addresses parking violations. So a vehicle cannot be stored on a roadway in Kennedale longer than 21 hours, okay? It has to move. Can't be any more than 18 inches off the curb. Unfortunately, where you're at, you don't have a curb, you've got a bar ditch, right? So that's exactly right, and so. Right, you're absolutely right. And we'll work with the police department on getting that addressed. The next time, what you could do, we got a new online service where you can send in photos, you can send in complaints, and you can remain anonymous if you have any parking issues. Snap a photo, it goes to our office, and then they'll start working it from there. So if you have any parking issues, we can get that addressed in town. But for the commission, the plat does meet all the city's zoning requirements. It further provides diversifying the housing development within Old Town itself, and so we recommend approval.
Thank you, staff. Do we have anyone else that, okay.
Stephen, can I make a comment? I mean, if you guys do approve this thing, which if you do, can you take parking into consideration during the planning phase?
Oh, that was going to be one of my questions. So with Old School 1, is there a limitation on location of parking for a resident? Because I know where there are for commercial. But for residents, as far as, I mean, piling on a vehicle, you're right, it's a roadway, but if they're parking or storing a vehicle on the road, that becomes something different. But obviously, if we're having issues, it sounds like a kind of more of a civil penal issue, I guess, if you will, not necessarily a coding, well, code, yeah, but not necessarily a zoning issue. So a replat necessarily it's not going to repair this, fix this, or even really alter it. Because
My wife is disabled.
understood.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't necessarily totally just go back and forth with you, but I can ask Nathan, is there a code allowing a handicap zone or parking to be allowed or put in front of a residential area like it would be for something like that? Can he petition or request that?
So you have what's called on-street parking and off-street parking. Off-street parking is your typical parking space when you go into a commercial business and whatnot, but it also applies towards residential, right? So your driveway, where do you park your vehicles? In your garage? That would be called off-street parking. On-street parking is where you can park on the actual public road. So just like Mistletoe, or excuse me, Paula, some of these other streets around here, Hilltop, you can park in front of your house. Like that's okay, but you can't store it there. And how do we define that? Is that there's a time limit. It can't be parked out there more than 20 more consecutive hours. Now, if they just move it a little bit, we're going to chalk the tires, right? And we'll chalk the tires. If we'll come back, hey man, if you hadn't moved, you got tree leaves blowing all on the thing. It's dusty, hasn't moved. You cannot store a vehicle on a public road in Kennedale, but you can park on a public street. But if there are issues with parking, that's separate from zoning per se, on the platting at least. But it doesn't mean it can't be addressed. And so we'll definitely look at that. Can that be included within a replat? No, it doesn't. It just has to do with the actual private property. And where they're parking is the city right of way. And so we don't allow storage of vehicles in the city right of way. And so we can get with the police department to have them tag it. And if they don't move it, it's going to get towed. Now, that would be the police department towing it, not code enforcement. Code enforcement, that requires a signature on a tow slip from a peace officer in Kennedale, and code enforcement's not that, but doesn't mean we can't work a code enforcement case, start a case, contact the PD, and we do that all the time.
Thank you for entertaining my question to answer for him.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just had to go about a roundabout way of doing it, sir. Just to stay in the right. All right, well, any discussion on this particular one? I understand we have some responses based from our speakers that, yeah, there's some parking. They're concerned about the vehicles being whatnot. Now, does that really affect the plat? I'm going to say, in my case, no. But there is such thing as being a good neighbor. And that's one of the things I definitely say, reach out to your law enforcement, reach out to code.
I've got a working relationship with that land.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. I hope that addresses your concerns.
Well, I hope so too. But, I just don't want to see an accident or anything else just because somebody didn't consider it.
Absolutely. Understood. But, bottom line, be good neighbors to each other as well. And that goes both ways, 'cause
We tried to reach out.
Understood.
Solve the problem, they didn't want to do it.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, so any discussion on the?
My question, and I'm learning, for the replat, will it be equally divided? Okay, and it'll be just like, it'll be like, I guess side by side, just split it, yeah, okay.
Right, it was a large end of the block. So they're going to take that and they're basically splitting it right down the middle. Now, when they do that, when you create a lot, that new lot, it has to meet the city's zoning requirements. And what we're saying is that it does. And so because of that, state law says that the city can't deny it if it meets the city's zoning. Right. So right now, these particular cases are still public hearing because it's a replat, but it's more of a ministerial act saying the city has to take action on it. We need signatures before they can take it down and file it at the county.
And those do actually reside with us. They don't go up to city council. You got some to be here. All right.
So
Anything?
just throwing it back out, putting it out there again, is that these are just replats. We can't address the parking, but when there is the building permit that comes up, we can look at that. We can look at how they're going to utilize that space. And now hearing that the parking was concerned, I understand the applicant is here. So as that goes through, if that is part of what the process is going to be, please consider being considerate with ample parking for whatever's going to be built on this.
I'm sorry, are you the?
He's another neighbor.
Oh, you're a resident? Okay. Well, did we close the public hearing?
No, we already closed public hearing, so.
So let me give you my card, and please reach out to me. I'm happy. I want to hear what your concerns were. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to provide you any information that you need, sir. Yes, sir.
That's definitely the right conduit for that. I mean, unfortunately, there's not much we can do about it.
No, I understand, I just consider it.
All right, well, I'd like to take a motion to go ahead and consider replat and approve for it on 2504.
I make a motion that we replat, that we approve a replat for 124 West Fifth Street. And what's the address? Oh, lot 7R1 and 7R2, block 3.
43. Yeah.
43.
Get a
Kennedy,
second?
Texas.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? 4-0, ma'am. It does pass for approval. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Like I said, I really hope you guys can work it out. I don't want to see anybody on the news. Not unless you won the lottery or something. Good luck.
I think this is still being recorded.
All right, so the last one, PZ case 2505, to conduct a public hearing and consider a replat of property located at 110. I'm going to slaughter that one. Clydeville? Okay.
Kaylee Bay.
Got a letter, we don't have any objections.
There you go.
Actually, on 329 West Fifth Street.
Okay. Lot 3R, or 13R, Block 49, Original Town, Kennedale, being a revision of Lot 13, 14, 15, Original Town of Kennedale, Tarrant County, Texas.
Yeah, this is 2505.
Staff, I'm going to go ahead and open it for a public hearing at 9:53.
But I have.
And we have no speakers. We'll go ahead and close at 9:53. Staff, go ahead.
So here we have a existing home structure that's been there forever. It's actually been the subject of a lot of code enforcement cases. It's been purchased, it was been sold, it's been purchased. That trailer will be relocated out of the city of Kennedale. We thought that was going to be demolished on site, but they found somebody that wants it. Right, yeah. So but the parcel itself is made up of a lot of little slivers of land back when Old Town Kennedale was created. They used to have these little tiny little lots with an alleyway. So this replat just basically consolidates all those little slivers of land into one lot for what we anticipate to be another residential structure there. And so with that, it meets all the city zoning requirements, and we recommend approval.
Any further discussion on that? I know exactly, I can't pronounce it, but I know what he's talking about.
Calabell?
Kaylee Bay, I think that's.
Calabell? Bayo?
Bell, sure. All right, well, I'd like to hear somebody else. I'm gonna ask for a motion to approve, and I'd like to hear somebody else actually make the motion for once. You. I approve.
Make a motion that we approve to replat.
I approve the motion to replat.
No.
110 Calabell.
Just y'all say it and I'll second
Yeah.
it. I'll second it. Somebody say.
That suffices, yeah.
Trying to get some practice here.
Go ahead.
All right, well, I'm gonna ask for a motion to approve, please.
I make a motion that we approve PZ 2505.
All right, can I get a second, please?
I second the motion.
All right, all in favor, please. We have 4-0, ma'am. That motion will pass. All right, any further alibis before we adjourn?
You sitting up here and you shine.
I'm going to take that as nope. So at this time, at 9:55, P&Z will be adjourned. Thank you very much. You all are